Welcome everybody to both sides of the conversation. I'm John Henry, Executive Director. Today is Sunday, so you know what that means. We're gonna have another powerful Sunday conversation. So we are excited to be here today. For all the folks just following us for the first time, please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out what's going on. You can use the live chat function if you want to have comments or if you want to ask any of the panelists today any questions. That's how you could do it. Or you could go to our Facebook page and group and leave comments there as well. Looking forward to today's conversation. It's going to be powerful, a very impactful conversation. And again, we always here for the both sides of the conversation. This week has been a tremendous week with violence in our community. Just want to update community. It's been a terrible week in San Francisco and Oakland with the amount of shootings and gun violence. And again, we're going to be having another conversation about that, talking with community, trying to figure out how we can do our part and what are some of the steps and tools that we need to make and put in place for our community because this violence is out of control. Just coming in today, there was a standoff on Highway 80. They shut down the freeway for a shooting. I mean, this stuff in our community is getting out of control, out of hand. And we got to do our part, community. We got to find a way how to engage our young people. And it's not just the teenagers. You know, we got to talk about this over the tape population, too. We got a bunch of young folks from the ages of 25 to 35 that are a big part of the problem in our community. And we have to figure out how do we create programming services for those age groups and making sure that we get those folks involved with community. So, again, it's a lot of work we got to do. We're going to keep pushing forward and trying to figure out solutions. Again, I'm tired of all of the talking. It's time to do some action. And it's definitely a cost to it. So we got to figure out how we're going to move some of this money to get our community folks involved. So again, more conversations, more work to do. And, we'll be on the front line doing our part. And I'm just excited to be back. Touchdown, dropped out the air. And now I'm here. Khalees, how you doing, Queen? Welcome, everybody. Talk to the people today, Khalees.
Yes. Happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Sunday. It's been a beautiful weekend. Rays of sunshine. Hopefully everyone was able to get out into the community and absorb some of the sunshine. Get some vitamin D in your life.
Man, definitely. It was an amazing week. It's a little windy and cool today, but we'll be going in there. We got some more rain coming in the next couple of days, so we have to get ready for the rain. Just when you thought it was all gone, it's coming back for a second round for us. Community, looking forward for today's show. With that being said, we're going to jump into the world announcements, our events, and then we're going to start bringing up our phenomenal panelists today to have the conversation, the criminal justice system, how does it impact our community, the pros and cons, and we'll have both sides of the conversation. Khalees, if you want to take off for the world news and events, go on ahead and take at it.
Absolutely. Yes. As John was saying, there was a police standoff with barricaded person that shut down westbound I-80 in Richmond. A police standoff with this person in the vehicle shut down lanes on Interstate 80 in Richmond today. This actually happened today. So all the lanes were in both directions at Central Avenue were reportedly closed at 1 p.m. today due to the police activity. Also, a 52-year-old man died from a shooting in the Tenderloin. This happened in San Francisco. The police are looking for the gunman who shot and killed a man Saturday afternoon just after 1 p.m. The officers of the Tenderloin station responded to the 200 block of Golden Gate Avenue for a report of a shooting. The officers arrived and found a 52-year-old man suffering from an apparent gunshot wound. Officers called emergency personnel to the scene after providing aid to the man. The victim was taken to a local hospital with life-threatening injuries despite efforts by medical personnel. The victim died because of the injuries. So much going on, community. Please be informed and stay alert. Public health calamities. San Francisco Mayor Breed asked for federal assistance with the city's drug crisis. Mayor London Breed is asking for a federal lifeline when it comes to a curbing San Francisco ongoing drug crisis. You know, we've been talking about this fentanyl just everywhere and how it's just taken over. Mayor Breed states, "My hope is we can partner and work together to address this important issue." Breed admits San Francisco needs help to slow down dealing that's happening every day on the streets. She just wrote a letter to the newly appointed U.S. Attorney for Northern California, Ismail Ramsey, saying the problem is beyond the city's control. This is a cry out for help. This is a cry out for help, community. Breed says the city needs additional and ongoing support from the Department of Justice to both arrest and prosecute drug dealers. This is all at a time high when the fentanyl-driven overdose epidemic has brought open-air drug dealing to a new level. As we've been sharing all this fentanyl out in the streets, I mean, you got the fake fentanyl, the real fentanyl is taking out people. Oakland middle schoolers head to Hawaii for special spring break trip. 12 Oakland middle schoolers were selected for a trip that would change their lives. The students are headed to Hawaii this weekend for spring break thanks to a partnership between Oakland Unified School District and a luggage company called State Bags. According to the State Bag website, its founders take pride in engaging in community and doing what they can to help the undeserved. They say they want to shift the narratives around social injustices. It's about the gift of travel. So it looks like these students are going to take a trip of their life. This is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. The students get to stay out in Hawaii a whole week, and they're going to experience Hawaii's culture, language, and food. They'll be hiking in the islands of Oahu and Maui and also learn about marine wildlife. Wow, kudos to that founder. 3 earthquakes strike near Oakland Zoo. A series of 3 earthquakes jolted the Bay Area Saturday morning. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the first 3.0 magnitude quake hit at 9:24 a.m. this morning. It hit around Oakland Zoo at the Nolan Park area. And there were a few other earthquakes down in Southern Cal. I don't know if you all were aware about that too. Missing Florida toddler found inside an alligator's mouth day after mother's murder. This is tragic, very tragic. The father of Taylon Mosley, 2, was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the child and for the stabbing death of the boy's mother, 20-year-old Pashan Jeffrey. Officers fired a round at the alligator, killing it and forcing it to drop the child's body. Taylon's body was retrieved, though police said it's not yet clear how the boy died or if he was dead before he ended up in the lake. Police had been searching for Taylon since 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, when they found Jeffrey dead from multiple stab wounds inside her apartment after following a blood trail from her vehicle. Thomas Mosley, Taylon's father, was immediately named a person of interest after he checked himself into a local hospital with cuts to his arms and cuts on his arms and his hands. So much going on in the community, just awful. All around the world, just awful. Be mindful of all of this. We have a lot of upcoming events. Youth Speaks hosting a writing and performance workshop has a spring series at 265 Shotwell Street, and there will be a Zoom available. The link will be below. District 10 Budget Town Hall. This is happening April 3rd, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Southeast Community Center at 1550 Evans Avenue. We'll have the link below for you to register. Health fair for the unhoused people and others in need of care. There'll be medical care, testing, vaccines. This will all be happening April 4th, 10 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the San Francisco Public Library at Larkin and Grove outside the Larkin Street entrance. MOAD members are invited into a Black Venus opening reception on April 4th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. at 685 Mission Street at 3rd. The link will be below. San Francisco HRC and Sharp presents Screening of Triggered Life, a Rakim of Healing, April 5th at 5 p.m. This will happen at the Wilsey Center Atrium Theater at 401 Van Ness Avenue on the 4th floor. The tickets are free at the link below. Economic Rights Division at the San Francisco Human Rights Commission, San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, State of Black San Francisco, Economic Dignity and Booms and Busts. This is happening April 7th. At eventbrite.com. Office of Economic and Workforce Development, 2nd Annual Hospitality and Small Business Job Fair, April 12th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at One Ferry Building in the Front Plaza. You can register at the link below. Women Got Game, Women of Color Gaming Summit and Esports Tournament is happening April 15th. For more information, we'll have the link below. That means women know how to play games too. Beam, Black Economic Equity Movement, Guaranteed Income Project, for San Francisco and Oakland. The deadline to apply is April 16th. The link will be below. Enough, Plays to End Gun Violence. Call for submissions now through April 20th. Calls for teenagers to submit a 10-minute play that confronts the issue of gun violence. We just talked about this, all this gun violence. So now's the opportunity for the teens to go ahead and submit a 10-minute play, and heck, you never know. For the information, we'll have the link below. Mackey's Corner presents Suicide Awareness and Prevention, June 3rd at Gilman Park, San Francisco. For more information on how you can help, we'll have the email below. SFHRC regular bi-monthly commission meetings are 2nd and 4th Thursdays at 5 p.m. San Francisco City Hall, room 416. The Zoom information will be in the link below. Dreamkeeper Initiative has monthly meetings every third Thursday. For the website, you can access it below. African American Reparations Advisory Committee also has their monthly meetings, which is virtually 5:30 p.m. every second Monday. You can register at the link below. After school writing workshops at Youth Speaks office. This is San Francisco team. They can receive a $300 stipend. This is on Wednesdays at 4:30 p.m. at 265 Shotwell Street in Unit B1. You can access the link below. Remove Reverend Amos Brown from the NAACP and Reparations Task Force. Reverend Brown does not represent the change we need. Both sides of the conversation need your support and signature. You can go ahead and click that link below to supply your signature. Opportunities for all. Pathways to Economic Inclusion for Youth. OFA fellow apps are now open. Have fun, get paid. You must be 18 and a high school graduate or a GED. For more information on that is the link below. Opportunities for All also has a Pathways to Economic Inclusion for Youth that has intern applications that are open. You can also get paid and have fun. Information on that, the link will be below. Close the Gap Foundation having a summer fellowship scholarship opportunity, which is a program between June 4th and September 17th. Applications are due March 31st, and it looks like it may be too late for that one. The City and County of San Francisco has an upcoming career event, Career Resource Fair, April 15th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Civic Centers Plaza at 355 McAllister Street in San Francisco. You can register at the link below. Join our youth team. San Francisco youth volunteers are needed. We have a paid stipend over here at both sides of the conversation. High school or college honor roll students, join with us. The email is at hr@bothsidesoftheconversation, bsotc.org. Again, hr@bsotc.org. And boy, I tell you, all those events, the world news, the shootings, my, there's a lot going on.
Well, Khalees, we'll give you a couple of seconds to take 2 puffs of your inhaler so you can go ahead and read the stats. It was a lot, but community, this is April. This is Volunteer Awareness Month. We know that there's a lot of organizations who need support. Please make sure that you're doing your part. I'm tired of folks calling and saying, John, I want to connect with the community. I want to get involved. This is the month to get involved. Make sure you reach out to community organizations who need support. Everybody in our community, 2% of your time could be a great impact to a community organization or to our community. With that being said, we are still looking for volunteers here at both sides of the conversation to help support our mission and vision and the work that we're doing to impact community. And we'll be excited to have some amazing folks from the community bring some of that talent to our organization as well, bring to other organizations that are doing work in our community. Again, for folks just joining, go to all of our social media handle sites at both sides of the conversation, like, subscribe, and follow. Our next live show will be this Tuesday at 7 p.m. We'll have another Hidden Gem show every Tuesday where we highlight our Black and brown businesses, community leaders, and organizations that are doing positive things to impact community. And then this Thursday coming up, we're going to have a special educational Thursday. Is going to be on small business owners. Come learn some amazing stuff. Again, every Thursday, we're trying to be intentional and bring different community folks, different community organizations to come educate our community and bring that information to our community. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and go through some of the data and stats that we have found on this topic before we bring up our panelists. So Khalees, I hope you got a couple pumps in. Go ahead and read through our stats.
We own it, John. We own it. The strength of our criminal justice system depends on its accuracy, its ability to convict the guilty and to clear the innocent. But we know that wrongful convictions happen. Identifying and understanding the causes of wrongful convictions is critical to maintaining the integrity of our justice system. A conviction may be classified as wrongful for 2 reasons. The person convicted is factually innocent of the charges. There were procedural errors that violated the convicted person's rights. So how many people has California wrongly convicted? A new research group finds that at least 200 wrongful convictions have been thrown out since 1989 in California, costing those convicted more than 1,300 years of freedom and taxpayers $129 million. Nearly 50,000 legal restrictions against people with arrest and conviction records routinely block access to jobs, housing, and educational opportunities, which significantly contributes towards high rates of reincarceration of people who have been released from prison. 50 to 75% of incarcerated people report having a minor child. For incarcerated women, the rate is higher, 58% of women in U.S. prisons. Having a family member incarcerated is considered an adverse childhood experience. This impacts the child's life. It contributes to poor mental health and behavioral issues such as alcoholism, depression, anxiety, suicide, and poor physical health in adulthood, such as heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, liver disease. 1 out of every 3 Black boys born today can expect to be sentenced to prison, compared to 1 out of 17 white boys. You know, that's enough for me right there. That's enough for me, that there is so much on Black versus white. I mean, did you hear that, community? 1 out of every 6 Black men who today should be between 25 and 54 years old have disappeared from daily life. Incarceration and early deaths are the main drivers behind their absence. Their absence from the community removes voters, workers, taxpayers, and more. Boy, this is going to be a heavy conversation, John. I tell you, heavy conversation.
Yeah, I'm ready for it. We've been waiting long enough. I know community is saying enough of you all. I'm ready to hear from the panelists. And I just see my brother Dante jump in here. Oh, it's going to be a good one today. So with that being said, we're going to start bringing up today's guests, and we'll bring them up one by one, and we'll give everybody a couple minutes to introduce yourself. We're going to start off with Miss Karen Fleshman. Welcome to both sides of the conversation. Thank you for being a panelist today. If you could take a few seconds to introduce yourself and let community know who you are.
Thank you so much, Khalees. Thank you, John. Yeah, wow. A lot to talk about, to say the least. My name is Karen Fleshman. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the founder of Racy Conversations. We are a workplace workshop facilitation company, and our mission is to inspire the anti-racist generation. I founded Racy Conversations in 2014 after a career serving immigrants and preparing young adults of color for the workplace, with a particular emphasis on Tay youth. And I ran for Board of Education in November of 2022 on a platform of educational equity and ending the racial disparities in the SFUSD school system. And I've also been a police accountability activist here in San Francisco. I was part of the Justice for Mario Woods Coalition and did a lot of work testifying to the police commission about how to transform the criminal justice system here in San Francisco. And I am an attorney, but I don't practice law. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm really honored to be among such fantastic panelists.
Definitely. I'm glad you're here. We'll talk about this educational system. We know it's a mess, and we'll have to talk about this prisoner pipeline that continues to happen as well. So looking forward to that. Next up, we're going to bring up Precious. Welcome to both sides of the conversation, Precious. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on. I hope my computer's freezing, so I hope you can hear me. I am a life and wellness coach, as well as a mental health advocate and a community builder. I started this journey in my company as a means to heal for all the people. I work in companies as well as with the community on, how to help their mental health and self-care and wellness and well-being. My company also mentors women who are incarcerated on better techniques for them when they're coming home. I like to say that I've been on every side of the law now, unfortunately. As a youth, I learned how to create bills and things like that. One of our bills actually passed into Congress. Obama spoke about it in his inauguration. And as an adult, I landed myself in incarceration from being in an abusive relationship. And I just found that there's so many things that, we need healing from. And that started my journey into entrepreneurship to help people.
Wow, phenomenal. Looking forward to this conversation. I know you have some insight and some great tips that we could do. Next, we're going to bring up the man, the myth, Brother Dante King. What's up, brother?
Don't do that to me today, John. So, hey, Karen, it's good to see you. Hey, Khalees and Precious, nice to meet you. So my name is Dante King, and I've been on both sides of the conversation a few times now. I'll probably say this is my 6th or 7th time, but I am an assistant professor. I teach at a few universities. I also have my own consulting company, and I've also done a lot of activist work, particularly within and amongst the Black employee population. I founded a group called the Black Employees Alliance in San Francisco, and we've been very active in terms of our goals to change outcomes and shift conditions as they pertain to Black employees who are working for the city and county of San Francisco. I also had an opportunity to meet Karen through a mutual friend that we have in common when I was doing some work with the San Francisco Police Department to try and address the issues of police bias that exists there. And as we all know, these agencies and just the ways in which that they've evolved, and even just kind of how they came about. There's a faction of the policing system, of the law enforcement system, that is particularly anti-Black and has developed to keep Black people in a position of helplessness. So I know we're going to talk more about that. One of the things I'll just say lastly is I wrote this book last year called The 400-Year Holocaust, White America's Legal, Psychopathic, and Sociopathic Black Genocide, and the Revolt Against Critical Race Theory, which really focuses on how anti-Blackness evolved in this country. So I hope to share more about that as we continue.
Definitely. We always got time for it, man, but glad you're here, and I'm just looking forward to today's conversation. Next, we're going to bring up Clarence Dixon. Clarence, what's up, brother? Welcome to both sides of the conversation, King.
Good afternoon. My name is Clarence Dixon, and I don't have much to say at this moment of my. I have a lot to say about the prison system, because I had the opportunity to live two lifestyles in one lifetime. Okay, and it's only a blessing, only God's amazing grace that brought me out from who I used to be and everything. And I'm just glad to be clean and sober today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Looking forward to hearing from you, David. I know we got some powerful stuff coming from you, brother. I'm going to pull it out of you, okay? The bishop going to pull it out of you today, brother. All right. With that being said, last but not least, I think we got some other guests that's going to be pulling up late, but we have WB. Welcome to both sides of the conversation. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
I prefer WB. You can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. I prefer WB. My name is Wanda Brown. I'm here, I guess, to talk about law enforcement. I'm retired, 29 years, Department of Corrections. I'm on here because I've also tuned into both sides of the conversation. I appreciate what you guys are doing for the community and getting information out and all that good stuff. My wife, Rashida Brown, was on here about a month or so ago speaking about hair care. She's very good friends with Khalees, and listening to everyone's introduction. I'm on here with some heavy hitters. I look forward to these conversations and instilling some input as well.
Man, definitely glad to have you here, and we're excited for today's conversation. So with that being said, we're not going to wait no time. We're going to jump right into it because this is a very heavy conversation. And I think I want to start off when we talk about wrongful convictions, because too many times in California, we have more prisons here than we have colleges. And we're finding more and more of these wrongful convictions. A few years ago, I know some of the drug lab tests were issues, and a bunch of folks were released. We had a bunch of murder cases that was falsely imprisoning folks. We had a bunch of just a mess in our justice system in San Francisco and across the state. But we know the cost of money that it takes when these wrongful convictions take place. So many people's lives are impacted, their families, the community. And, we're trusting into having good police work. And, the question always comes up about what's good police work. The cities are overpacked. There's not enough policemen. So how do we get true criminal justice? How do we get true investigations? And that's been a very, very struggle when it comes to the system and how it goes through and what people are dealing with. But we want to start it off there. Just talk about the wrongful conviction part, because that is a big impact. That's one part of it. We know there's many dynamics to this failed system. But I want to start off there because I think that is very important. I've had people from the jails, from the prisons reach out to us, talk about how the system is so delayed. Folks are sitting in the county jail for 5-6 years fighting cases. The DAs and the system can't get their charges. So that's where I want to start off, but we could popcorn this again. This conversation is going to take many turns, but I want to start off there because I think the wrongful conviction is a big topic right now. With a lot of folks, especially folks who are sitting, can't afford bail, can't afford attorney fees, can't afford some of the things that they need to get out of the system, and they're just sitting there stuck on hold, waiting to get in there. So we're going to do this popcorn style. Anybody could jump in. We just want to respect each other. Again, if you're not speaking, mute your mic, but go ahead. I'm going to open the floor up. Wrongful convictions, looking at it, how can we fix it? What are some of the strategies and just the impact of it? We'll start there.
The first thing I would like to say is I don't know if it's a problem that when you say how can we fix it, right? I think we have to first understand this country and its institutions and people in positions of power prey on the weak. They prey on the powerless. And we have to also understand that prison and jail in this country, it's a business. It's a multi-billion, trillion dollar industry where people are employed. They are there to manage these situations. I said, and I continue to say this pretty loudly everywhere I go, there's no morality when it comes to Black people in this country. I just really don't believe that there is. And it's not even just wrongful convictions, it's wrongful enforcement of the law. It's wrongful application of the law. And I'm involved in so many of these types of discussions where, we're trying to figure out, well, what can we do to help Black people, to save Black people? We have to reprogram in our own minds a different understanding that Black behavior, or the behavior that Black people are exhibiting, or things that we're doing or acting out, it's not specific to us. There's just a hyper focus that is centered on Black people, on Black identity. You've got white people doing some of the most heinous, atrocious acts, and yet they're being let off the hook. I listened to the young lady Precious talk about how she found herself ending up in the web of incarceration or on the wrong side of law enforcement because of a domestic violence dispute. And I think we have to understand that if she were a white woman, being involved in that situation, she probably would have been geared towards services or been given some type of assistance and support. There's a way that these institutions are dealing with Black people, with some of us being employed in doing the things that we have to do to remain employed within these institutions where we're causing harm to our own community. So it's not just coming from white people. It's not just coming from Asians or Hispanic. It's coming from all those places. And it's also coming from people who look like all of us too. So when we talk about wrongful convictions, we have to understand that game that's played with the people's appetites to just go after any Black person that they can to get the conviction, that's helping build people's careers. It's building the careers of the officers. It's building the careers of the prosecutors who go after those people and prosecute them. People are being rewarded for all of these acts. It's not without purpose and it's not without cause. So there's a whole discussion to be had, but there are so many layers involved in this discussion.
If I may, could I go next?
Yeah, go ahead. Jump in
Yeah.
there.
So thank you so much for that very helpful context, Dante, because I think it's really easy to hone in on one specific issue, but we have to really zoom out and see the broader picture. And John, you mentioned at the beginning that here in California, we have more prisons than we have universities. And this is a very specific policy decision. So, before the 1970s, California had the best public school system and the best public university system in the world. And then there were white taxpayers who basically did not want to fund schools for Black and brown children. So they passed Proposition 13, curtailing property tax, setting limits on it for both individual homeowners and for corporations. And Ronald Reagan got elected governor. He passed the 3 strikes laws, and California started going on this prison building boom. So when we look at the budget of prisons in California versus the budget for universities in California, as the budget for prisons goes up, the budget for universities comes down. So we have made a very intentional policy decision. And now it's extremely difficult for people who were born and raised in California to even get admitted into the UC schools. Most of the admission is coming from out of state, and a lot is international. Like UC Berkeley is like where the Chinese elite send their kids. So we have deliberately decided as a state, we're not going to invest in the education of Black and brown students, but instead we're going to invest in building all these prisons. And when we start to build the prisons, then we got to fill the prisons, and it becomes, as Dante said, this big industry. And in particular, they build the prisons in these remote rural parts of the state where there's not a lot of sources of employment. And this becomes a big source of employment, particularly for white men who don't have a college degree. And then it's extremely difficult to shrink the prisons back down, because then you have this constituency that is deeply invested in the prisons. And I'll add one last thing. The prison guards and the correctional officers and the police officers in California are all aligned together in a massive statewide lobbying group that donates to political campaigns. And if legislators try to pass any laws that go against their interests, then they call in their other union people and they lobby against these laws. So it's extremely difficult to get anything to change for either police or prisons in the state of California.
Wow, very great information. Go ahead, Precious.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in. I agree with everything everyone said, but we keep using this word fix, and we can't fix something that's not broken. The system is working exactly how it was designed to be worked. There is no fixing the system of mass incarceration. It's doing its job. What we need to do is figure out a way how we can start to dismantle these systems and to create opposing institutions for our community to allow them to thrive in other ways. Like we said earlier in the notes when we were talking about, like, there is like a new war on drugs happening right now, right? And if we lobby for that, our community is going to be the target of it. Although, if we look at history and we see that history is repeating itself right now, we are not the ones getting the drugs distributed. We are not the ones that are the middleman for these institutions. There are people in law enforcement that are, aiding and assisting in bringing in these things, and our community will be hit with this another wave of mass incarceration. There's also, like I said, they're trying to now eliminate bail, but most people in incarceration don't have money for bail. They're sitting in their own things that they have not, like crimes they haven't committed. We are having conversations about bringing in people to make prettier prisons now with all of this utopias and things like that, but there are so many other organizations that are helping the community that money can go towards. Why are we not doing prison prevention instead of prison institution beautifying?
I think that's a very good point. Clarence, you want to jump in there? I see you came off your mic, brother.
Like you said earlier, the prison system is a business. It's a big business thing. It's a monopoly. Okay, and they shut down all the state hospitals, and the majority of incarcerated inmates that's incarcerated has emotional and mental issues and everything, and also the majority of the prison system is drug and alcohol related, and you got liquor stores on every corner in the low income communities and everything, and it's a big business. There's no fixing it, because the man that's setting up in high places and everything, he gonna always have a way to keep us locked up, and that's the way they get things going. It's just they lock them up. The investors in the prison system, and they all against the ones that committed crimes and everything. And the majority of people that committed crimes is mental and emotional unstable. But there's a way. But myself, I'm a praying man, and I believe that the one who got the last call is the one who's up above.
That's right.
Well, you got to stay away from there. I mean, you got to avoid it at all costs. Interaction with the police, you just got to avoid it. You got to avoid it. You got to think. You got to be careful. You just can't. You can't let your life fall into the hand of the judicial system. You can't, because you're playing an unfair game. You're going to be in the game that you don't want to be in.
Yeah, but that sounds good. But if you read Michelle Alexander's book, I'm blanking on the name right now, but look up Michelle Alexander. She did a study. Yeah, she did a study on the police system in Alameda County, and she has a wonderful story in there about a young man who never had any run-ins with the law. And one day he started getting pulled over because he was a young Black man with dreads. And he documented every single one of his incidents with the police, a stack of papers this big. And yet they were doing an investigation on the criminal justice system there. And we know now, thanks to Vice, that a lot more people know what we already knew, is that there are police gangs, and they were wrongfully giving young Black men I forget what it's called. It's not convictions, but arrest warrants. And once you get an arrest warrant, your testimony in a court system is null and void. So he couldn't even lobby for himself, although he never did anything wrong. So that has to be addressed as well, because there's a lot of, guilty by walking while Black.
But I would also, I also want to add into this equation the ways in which the leniency and the latitude that law enforcement has been given. It's not about not coming into contact with them. They spend 90%, if not more, of their budget concentrating their attention and their focus on communities of color. They are situated to police communities of color. So it's easy if we were talking about, all law enforcement officials in terms of being a resource, that they are spread out, equally distributed amongst and throughout different communities. That is not the case. If law enforcement is concentrated in your community, you are more likely going to not only come in contact with them, but again, I mentioned the word, the latitude that they've been given with consent searches in all of these activities that they're able to take part in by proactively, you know, searching or approaching people. There's that issue happening in San Francisco right now, where these officers are able to go and basically, if they deem someone reasonably suspicious, right? And we all know that there's infinite subjectivity that exists there, right? They can come into contact with anyone they want, and then they control the narrative as to whether or not someone was willfully, complying with what they are wanting to have happen, or whether they are obstructing the situation. I mean, I wish it were that easy. And then how can I say this? The other problem that I think exists here, at least for me, is we always have to be told what we can and cannot do or should or shouldn't be doing. And no other group exists under that type of scrutiny. And so when we say, oh, if you need to just stay away from the police, well, white people and Asians are not necessarily staying away from the police. They're just not haunted in the ways that we are. And so I don't know, like, these conversations are so traumatizing for me, because it's like we're trying to solve for an equation. And there's another book by Jody Armour. He's a law professor at UCLA. It's called Nigga Theory. And he talks about the retributive urge, just this compulsive obsession that we have with doing harm to Black people, and how there's no empathy or compassion that exists there. But the minute, and even Mr. Dixon, one of the things he says, crimes are being committed by people who are mostly mentally ill. I don't believe that that's true. I think that we are guided to think that way, because that's where we are guided to focus our attention. But I worked in banking for a very long time. I cannot tell you the number of white people who came into my branch when I was a branch manager and committed wire fraud, committed credit fraud, committed all these types of fraud, but yet we're concentrating our attention on the young Black woman who might have cashed a $700 forged check. It's nonsense. And that's why I say we have to reprogram ourselves so that we're not spewing or repeating the nonsense based on what's coming across our news cycle, what we're being told in terms of social media, how stories are being presented, because it's BS. And you've got the people who control these institutions and who benefit, people who are in power, who continue to perpetuate the same injustices, and the people who look like those people, predominantly white people, who get to do whatever and behave in whatever ways they want and are not held accountable, can snort coke all day long, can go to work high, do any and everything, and they will not be taken to jail. They'll most likely be let off, maybe not even given a warning. So, I mean, again, I could just go on and on and on, but there's so many different pillars that we must consider when we're having these types of conversations. Because to blame, I think one of the things that makes me frustrated is it can sometimes seem as though Black people are being blamed for our behavior, like we are the problem, like we're causing some of these circumstances or these things to happen to us the way that they are. And we all know, I want to say this, and I'll shut up, that Black people are not welcome in this country. And so by getting rid of Black men, you read a statistic, right? 1 out of 3 Black men are going to end up in the anti-Black legal system, right? Or being a casualty. That is to cut off our reproductive ability. And if you look in the late 19th century and the early 20th century, as I shared last weekend at San Francisco Public Library, there were theorists who put forth these theories that, hey, if we cut off the reproductivity of the Black community, we will get rid of them within 100 years. Those types of philosophies were being asserted as recent as the mid 1900s, the 1970s, actually. So, with the eugenics movement. And so we have to understand that it's not just that it's a a capitalistic system that's at play, or a $1 billion trillion industry, there's also the agenda of getting rid of Black American people. There's no usefulness for Black American people in this country. Rather than keeping us enslaved, and you have a free labor situation or a low wage labor situation for the jobs they don't want to do. But as we've seen, they've brought in other people who are considered minoritized people, and they are now filling those jobs. And so, like Dr. Claude Anderson said, like Dr. John Henry Clark, people like Malcolm X, Black people, we are not wanted in this country.
So I got to jump in there, Dante, because I think it's very powerful that you say that. And I hear Precious, even just recently, last week, they had the investigation of a San Jose officer who was bringing fentanyl into our community, right? So in the Black community, we know we've been asking who's bringing the drugs, who's bringing the guns into our community. And a lot of times it's coming from our police, the very institutions that are, arresting us and putting us into these situations. I get it, and I know these conversations are triggering Dante, but we got to have it. But the thing is this, we are the reflection of the stuff behind the scenes that happen, right? It's just being displayed as the Black folks is doing this X, Y, and Z, but we know it's the policy. We know it's the classism. It's all of the other things that impacts us behind the scene, the legislative process. And it's just the result of where we at. But I think Precious hit on something that I like, and I know as we get through, we get into, because really that's what it is. It's not fixing the system, it's dismantling it, right? But when you talk about dismantling a system, right, that was fixed to distribute the wealth, the generational wealth and the classism for wealthy folks, you're getting into something that's real touchy that nobody wants to talk about because it's all in the Constitution. So the real question is, if you want to dismantle the system that is put together to allow these policies and these laws to impact the community, the real question, I've been saying this for years, Precious, but nobody want to have a conversation. You got to remove the Constitution, because all of the racism, all of the hatred, all of the slavery, all of the things that drive these very institutions in the community, the institutions is all derived off. So how are we going to dismantle that? Because the Constitution is the problem. And I keep saying, and nobody wants to have this conversation, but we got to get back and have a real conversation about term seating. Because when you allow lifetime judges at federal seats, when you allow people to be in these public spaces for 30, 40 years, that's a big part of the problem as well. You don't get the innovation. You don't get the opportunity to dismantle or make changes because the very people are sitting in these spaces for hundreds of years. So if we really want to talk about dismantling, that's where we have to start at. It starts at the Constitution. It starts with the people coming together saying enough's enough. See, the power is in the people. And what we have to do in this country is we got to get out of this Democrat or Republican thing, and we got to get back to the roots of the problem. We have allowed these very officials to put policies in place so that these folks can have lifetime seats. They have put in these legislative bills, these loopholes to keep the same insanity to keep happening. Because like you said, this is going to repeat itself again. We had a movement in San Francisco, let the people do the drugs. We're not going to arrest the people. Now you just heard in our news, the mayor is saying, hey, it's out of control. So all we're doing is taking a 5-year break, and then we redoing it all over again. Now it's out of control. Now we need the feds to step in. Now we need this to happen. But it's the mechanisms that needs to change. And we can't keep leveraging the business of the people, the law of the land, off the finances of the investors. That's the real conversation.
Oh, no.
Yes, we heard him. We heard him. And I'm just sitting here thinking, it's kind of like, so you have folks that get locked up. It said nearly 50,000 legal restrictions against people with arrest and conviction records routinely block access to jobs, housing, and education opportunities. So if you're not going to give these folks opportunities when they are released from prison or get back on the streets, what's going to happen? They're going to be forced back to the streets to make a living, right? So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. If you're not going to give them an educational opportunity, they can't even get a place to stay. None of that. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, and that's a part of the system working exactly how it was designed. And John, you speaking my language. You speaking my language, but I think that is too big for the people to conceptualize. It's definitely a possibility, but it's too big for the people to conceptualize. I think we have to take smaller steps in first understanding what that even means. Like, what does the Constitution even say? What does the legislation actually say? What moves are they making? How does that work? Like I said, I've been on all sides. So like, I got an opportunity to be a senator. I've gotten an opportunity to be a legislative analyst. And the thing is, the people don't even know that they can vote these people out that's been in these spaces every couple of years. It's not just the presidential election. That's the only thing that people know. And they don't even understand that the president, like, you don't pick the president. That's not even our job. Like, we not the people doing that. And the Democrats and Republicans are two wings on the same bird. Like, they're not for us. They're for whatever is for the corporation of America. And America is a business. So if you're going and you're going to be going up against the business of America, then like, that is a way bigger vision than I think people are ready to really take on. You know what I'm saying? But I think it also it has to start with something smaller. Like, we say defund the police, but what does that mean to the people that think that the police are the ones who are helping stop the violence? We say, our Black and brown people are getting higher sentencing, but what does justice actually look like? Justice is subjective in that manner, in the way that you can do the same thing as someone else and get a different sentence because of someone's bias, although they're supposed to be unbiased in their job. And because another thing, I'm just going to speak to the people because you get me excited. Another thing, speaking to the people, go to jury duty. Go to jury duty, because we are not being seen by a jury of our peers. A jury of our peers mean people that look like us, that understand our same struggles. So that means that the people that are actually seeing these people and seeing their court cases through are people who don't understand what they're going through and been through, and don't really care whether they see justice or not. Because like they said, back when they started the minstrel shows, Black people are dumb, Black people are lazy, Black people this is started way back then. So it's already in their head that we don't amount to anything. So when it comes to us getting justice, why would I make justice for someone who is just a criminal? Why would I make justice for someone who is making trouble, who's making my life harder? Like, why would I make justice for someone like that?
So I gotta jump in there on this, because I hear people say this all the time, but the jury system is set up not for Black folks. Okay, when you put Black folks in a position where they got to choose to go to work to pay their bills or come sit on the case with somebody who could be, you already gave them a disadvantage, right? Then the way the system is set up, most times when you have people from the very community that these crimes is happening in, the judge is going to remove them off the case anyway. So it's an unfair system. And this is why I'm saying, when we talk about dismantling, and I can't agree, we can't sit back and wait no more. This is why we having this conversation. Black people, listen to me. All the community out there, we got to get radical and we got to move fast. We can't sit back no more and say, oh, we don't have a time structure. Okay, in 2053, they are saying Black folks are not going to have the financial capacity to even move in this country. We don't got no time. So when do we bring it up? I mean, we cannot sit here and say, oh, this is too big for us to grasp. We have to start attacking it. It's like cancer. You got to start attacking it at every corner as immediately as possible. But again,
right. But when I
we
say
got to
too
go
big,
to the
I mean
ABCs.
education wise.
Yeah, we got to start first before we even go into the radical part. First, we got to start educating. See, they took all of the civil duties out of our schools. So the community organizations, the community leaders, and this is why I'm on these community leaders, because they are not doing their job to educate our community. First, we got to educate our children about their civic duty. We got to first educate our teachers and our community. Why is it important to vote on the local issue? Why are we not seeing the local issues on the news like we see the presidential issues on the news? See, CNN is covering everything for the presidential election, but what do we have locally? Where is the channel at that's teaching our community each bill, each thing that's going to impact our community? You see a 5-second slot. It's on and it's off. Oh, vote on A, vote on D. We haven't even got the proper education to the community in a way they can understand it so they can get civically involved. And then in that process, we got people throwing out bills, throwing out signatures. We got all the other shady stuff going on. So this is why people don't want to get a part of it. So if we want to dismantle the system, we got to come up with a new voting policy. We got voting issues all across this country. We got people, if they don't stand in line to drink water, they can't go. I mean, we got a system problem. So when you tell me we got to sit back and wait, I'm saying, wait, Precious. We got to make big noise, big movement, big fast. We don't got no time to wait. We got too many issues that we got to start attacking, because what's happening is we have so many issues and everybody said, well, this is what it is. This is what it is. And this is why that's why this country right now, when we talk about Black community, we are so stagnated. We are in neutral. We can't even move forward because all we worried about is the unknown. We don't know. This is too much for our people to handle. Well, people, you better get ready to handle something, because you think the shooters in this country is going to stop? You think the level of fentanyl in this country is going to stop? You think the level of violence that we are dealing with in our community is going to stop? No. It's going to get worse as the interest rates continue to go out the roof. What do y'all think people are going to do? The number of jobs that are being lost.
When I hear you say, though, that, it's on the community leaders, that presumes that they themselves have a level of knowledge or education and understanding that they then should wear the responsibility or taking on the onus of educating everyone else. Like, there are a lot of assumptions and presumptions within that statement. And I don't think that it's our fault or our duty, because again, and the point that I continue to stress over and over is that this same system that we are a part of, other people are a part of it too. It's just treating them differently. It's responding to them differently. They have been prioritized within it very differently. And so, we talk about the criminal justice system. We have to understand that Black pain in this country is an economy all within itself, all by itself. Black pain and suffering has made America the great country that it is, beginning with, we talk about the enslavement of African people, but I also highlight within that dynamic how Black women were prostituted and positioned as like America's greatest and largest, biggest rape victim. And it was an institution that lived and functioned that way for profit. And then you figure Black males into that situation too. And so you go from creating a machine where, forced free labor is the commodity to now we don't have to value these people ever at all, because that's not what was intended for them. And so we have to understand that thinking and that mindset, and then also understand that as we demonize and ridicule and mistreat Black people, if you are a part of these institutions, you get incentivized for doing so. These law enforcement agencies, the more arrests they're able to make, the more detentions they're able to make, they get more funding for doing that. And so I think it's important to understand that and maintain always that we as Black people who are trying to do our best to survive and figure out and exist within this cultural context, never in any case whatsoever are we at fault, because we're trying to do our best. And I also don't think that there's one particular solution or situation, because if you're not dealing with something directly, your level of desperation is not going to be as severe as the next person who is dealing with it directly. And so one question I begin to ask in my work, and I'm a researcher, I'm a professor by trade, right? But why are Black people remaining any type of respectful position as it pertains to this legal system? We need to change our posturing. Why do we maintain a respect for this legal system? Why do we maintain a respect for America's institutions when they have not treated us well historically and ongoing?
Trauma.
Dante,
I talk about that all the time. It's trauma. And if we're talking about leaders, John Henry, you are a community leader. We can't look to the people that are in the system that we are trying to dismantle, because it is a corrupt system. Like they say, put Black people in these positions of power, but you putting them still in the same system of corruption. Now, that's not to say that there is not any good people in positions of power in the police system and any of that things. We do need people with good consciousness, but essentially, even a good cell in an infected body can become infected. So we need people like John Henry and people that are creating platforms like this and in the community like this to be the voice and allow people to understand what's going on. Because when I say it's too big, I did not mean that it's not an option. But what I mean is like we said, people don't even know how to vote. So how are they going to be able to even wrap their minds around right now taking down the whole establishment of a huge corporation? And so we have to start with the education of the smaller things that are happening that is within their control, to give people the encouragement and the knowledge that they can move forward to the next step and the next step and the next step, as fast or slow. I don't know how fast or slow we won't go, but as fast and slow as we can go, to be able to create this change.
So Precious, I agree with you, but I also want to say this. There's enough of these Black elitists across this country that all they do is walk around with their nose up in the air talking about their PhDs, their law degrees, their sororities, their fraternities, and how great they are. We got enough leaders. But if you educate the people behind the leaders, we can't make movement. Dante, my point to you is this, brother. I agree 100% with you. But again, when do we in our community, how do we structure the new what leadership looks like? Because when I say leadership, everybody's not a leader. Every organization can't do it. Yes, they can. So it takes the community and the people to put the structures in place to say, this is how we're going to play ball moving forward. We have to do that. What these people are getting, hold on, they get it. They getting grant funding. Okay, it started with the churches. All right, that was our sacred space to go get information. It was the preachers. And then the preachers started selling us out. Right? Now you got the community organizations. They selling us out. We got the elders in the community. They selling us out. So when do we set up our new Black code? Because this is what I keep asking the people about the village. Because I keep hearing people talk about, it's the village, John. It takes a village. Well, who the hell is in the village? Because our village suck right now. There's no leaders. There's nobody standing on principle. There's nobody with no direction. See, leadership is about demonstrating what's possible. And I don't see a lot of them out there, Dante. So how do we build this next generation? Everything you're talking about on the historic landmark, what took place, I agree with you. You know, I'm agree with you. But now we got to talk about the future. Today is 2023. How do we set the new course for the new Black code, for the new way the community is going to move? How are we setting up the new leaders? And this is why I get on these elders about holding on the torch too long. See, real leaders equip the next generation. Real leaders teach the next generation how to take over and how to move. We have a lack of leadership in this country. So how do we take the new people that's doing what they do, Dante, and we implement the new code in our community? This is how we move. This is how we structure. This is how we organize. This is how we mobilize. If we can't do that, then where we going?
Well, again, all of those questions that you asked and the statements that you made, it presumes that you're dealing with a monolithic group of people who have a either similar or the same set of values. And you can't have a leadership structure, you know, to guide or to provide support to a group of people who don't have the same set of values. And I think we, especially within the African American community, have so many different ways that we live based on what region of this country we're from, how old we are, our gender. There are so many issues, and it's a very complex situation. I don't think that we've ever had leadership that was just kind of the static leadership of the Black community. I think there were people who were positioned as leaders who were more Black middle class or affluent, if you will. I think that there were white sponsors who stepped in. For example, I forget the guy's name, but the Jewish guy who started the NAACP. And then you had, who was it? Is it Ovington White, W.E.B. Du Bois? You had like some of those founding people, but our place here and our plight here has always been one of I hate to say it this way, but one of luck and or surviving like at a bare minimum. And I think the ones of us who the Black people who do best in this country are those that can be bought within this political capitalistic system. And so therefore we have to also understand that within that framework of being bought, or within that, the word has escaped me, but within that dynamic, within that situation, our measures for progress, our measures for how well we do are predicated upon goals and standards that have been set up and designed by white men. And so when we talk about even this idea of moving forward or progressing in what way, John? That's where what I always get to. Are you talking about so that we can have a certain degrees of power or economic standing or political standing? Because those are all nothing about that, to me at least, seems healthy. And it's a system that white people have set up, that they have arranged for themselves and for any other person that comes into this cultural context as the way to live, the way to organize, the way to be. And I don't think that it's proven to be healthy. We see white people right now at odds with each other. You have a more extreme faction that's at odds with the more liberal or progressive faction. These people are willing to do anything, even at the expense of themselves. Anyway, I'll stop right there. But you have, even this week going forth, a deranged narcissistic sociopath, who is being brought up on charges, who's running for the highest office of this country, the presidency of the United States. And if that happens, if that goes forward, I'm just sitting back to watch what is going to unfold, because these people are not being used to being held accountable. We're so used to being held accountable that we don't even like to give each other the benefit of the doubt when someone is not held accountable. It's like, well, they should be held accountable. Like, we're almost looking for something that needs to happen to Black people to keep us in line. And you hit on so many things, John, but I don't think that there's ever been static leaders within this community. Even MLK. MLK was a middle-class Black man who appealed to middle-class Black people and people who were aspiring to be where he wanted to be. And it wasn't just him. It was Medgar Evers. It was the head of the Muslim community, that guy right there too. Even, the reason that Malcolm X fell out with him is because he was like, you shouldn't comment on what happened with JFK, and the whole chickens coming home to roost with that comment. It was like, we want to keep our political standing so that we don't jeopardize ourselves. I just think that we don't give Black people enough credit for doing the best that we are doing to try to survive this chaotic nonsense. And that's where I live.
So we living in slavery is what you're telling me. This
Absolutely.
We in slavery. So my people is not free, y'all. We are in slavery because these policies and these bills, we are in slavery, y'all. We're not free. Wake up, community. Brother Clarence, I want to hear from you, brother. I know we've been all over the place, but the prisons are impacting us. We got to do something immediately to make a change with this prison industrial system. Because again, we got folks who can't get jobs. This California GDP is losing billions of dollars a day because of the amount of folks who have convictions on their records. They can't get jobs, they can't get housing, they can't get custody of their children. We got a problem, and we got to address it. But Brother Clarence, jump in there real quick, brother.
Yeah, I was like that. I came out of Folsom, old Folsom, with the certification of forklift driver, metal fabricator, and I was working at my welding certification, and I went through these 3 different temp agencies to get a job and everything. And me being honest, trying to do an honest program and everything. All these 3 temp agencies asked me, where did I get my certification at? Me being honest, I say in prison. And all of these temp agencies tell me the same thing. I'm sorry, sir, we cannot use it because of your prison background. And I got frustrated, I got mad, I got angry and everything, and I gave up. So I went back to do what I knew how to do best, was to pick up a sack. Okay, and I'm just glad I didn't go deep into it to return back to prison. Start doing crime and everything. Well, picking up a sack is a crime. Okay, and actually, the blame game is over with. I can't blame nobody for me getting mad, getting frustrated and everything. I just gave up on myself and everything. And you got people come out, you got OGs come out of prison and everything. I think OGs should get together with all the shot callers from all these gangs and everything. Put all these shot callers together and trying to formalize a peace treaty. You know, because black men, we always down at one another. We always want more than one another. We backbite one another. We need to come together as a one. And that's not happening. We need to come together as a one. We got to figure out something how to get the shot callers together to talk to their gang members, to make a peace treaty, to come together. That's my opinion.
I think that's very powerful, and I think the other thing, Clarence, you know, your story is similar to so many people. So when we talk about wraparound service and we talk about opportunities, you know, one of the things that I'm very disappointed in a lot of these community organizations and these folks who got funding to do this type of work, I'm always yelling and going to war with them. Because what happens is, again, we spend all of this money investing in rehabilitating folks while they're behind the walls. But then when they come home, it's not an opportunity. Your story is like so many of these other folks who come home. And this is why I'm always arguing with our elected officials, city departments, because this is the problem. You give the people in jail all these opportunities and train them, give them the skills, but then they come home and the very first thing they always hear is, I can't get you in the program. You missed this cohort. We got no opportunities. And that's why I'm saying the model of these programs need to be changed. The models, right? Now, there's some programs that they do and get folks going, but the models need to change because, see, when folks are coming back home, I keep telling folks, they don't got 3 to 6 weeks, 12 weeks. All right. When they hit the streets, some of these people don't even have a house. They don't have family. Some of them did 10, 12, 15 years. They coming home to nothing. They don't even know how to get acclimated with the digital currency, the technology. So we setting them up. And if we don't have immediately, when they walk home, a layout for them that will get them on that path, 90% of those folks are going back to jail or they're going to do something else. And that's just what it is. The numbers don't lie. But your story is the story that I hear from everyone. So all these folks talking about, oh, second chance. See, I believe in second chances. I know there's some phenomenal folks who did their time and come home. But when we have the level of this opportunity for folks to re-engage in our community. This is why I say we have to forgive. We can't say you go and do your time and you did all of this and then you come back to the community and you still don't get a second opportunity. That's what we got to change in this country. We got to work on that first, because brothers is coming home, sisters is coming home. They need those opportunities. They don't need the very system and folks who didn't give them an opportunity to say, well, you've been in jail. Okay, well, I'm trying to do the right thing now. How do we convince our industries, our institutions to make sure that we have pathways that are consistent, available, so that folks can move forward? I mean, they just have to have it. But Precious, I saw you come off your mic. Go ahead, Precious.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on so many things. This is my thing. So one thing that I want to say is, again, this is how the system is designed. Those people are not in prison. Those programs are not in prison for you to get a job when you get out. Those programs are in prison for them to get free labor. So it's another form of slavery. They're getting paid 10 cents, 6 cents, maybe $1, maybe $5 to do hard labor. They're some of the most intelligent people I ever met in my life that are incarcerated. I've not only been in this prison, but I worked with men, women, and youth across 14 states. And they're some of the most intelligent people I ever met. I was teaching 60-year-olds in there that never touched a computer how to code. So it's not about their capabilities, but it's about how do we really, really hold these people accountable that say that they're reentry programs, that say that they are second chance hires. How do we hold them accountable? And also, how do we get bridge programs? That's what I do in my mentorship. I bridge the gap between people, our women that we work with, and the people who are outside, so that there's no gap in here. You see that they're human. You see that they're regular people just like you. You get to have conversations with you. And the thing that helps with that is stories. Once you hear somebody's story, once you understand where they've been through, once you see that, oh, like, I know somebody who's been through that. Oh, I've been through that. A lot of people don't tell you their stories. But if you get to hear somebody's story, you realize that you identify with them, and you might not be as holy as thou than you are holding up to. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, once they get to hear people's stories, then they are able to open up and let their guard down just a little bit more.
Well, I think that's very important, Precious. That's why we hear both sides of the conversation believe through communication the healing process begins. We also believe to change the narrative, you got to change sometimes the leaders and the voices of the people. But we always got to hold space for people to be open and vulnerable, because I am one of those reentry folks. So I know how hard it took to go through this. And people ask me, why do I grind so hard for my young people? Because I understand their struggles. You teach the kids, you build them up, you get them motivated, and they come home, and the whole family dynamic is a mess. The community that they going back to is a mess. They don't get an opportunity, right? And then the very organizations, like you said, this is why we got to call them out. But if we don't have enough men in the community, enough women in the community to walk side by side and call these folks out and say, look, this is not cool. You're not providing the services. This is why we're doing our part to do these assessments of these organizations and hold them accountable. Somebody has to put the fire under their legs and say, hey, you can't do business in my community like this no more. You can't continue to keep causing harm to our community. You have resources. I'm always fighting these people. I'm always putting my neck on the line because I hear these very people that get a lot of money for these programs. And all I hear them saying is, we got to hold money for a rainy day. We got to put up a reserve. The rainy day is now, community organization. Today is the day that we got to get the resources to the people. We got too many people incarcerated coming home without an opportunity. You can't sit back and hold on to the resources for a better day. Today is the day we got to do it. But WB, you've been quiet. I've been just giving you a second to process, to warm you up. Go ahead, Queen, jump in there.
Wow, you guys have been saying a mouthful, but mostly you guys are speaking on the political side of the judicial system. I can talk to you about the criminal side. of the judicial system. Coco or Coley spoke on it earlier when she said you got to stay out of that environment. You can't keep yourself in that environment. Now, like I said, I did 29 years in there. So I saw a lot of recidivism. I saw them turn around and come back and you know, I'm booking them in and they go and do 5 years and I see them again, you know, after that 5 years. You know, you got to keep yourself out of that situation. Prison, to me, my 29 years, prison is a mindset. It's a mindset. So if you know, while they're in there, they're learning new ways to do other crimes. They're not learning, they're not thinking about what can I do to keep myself out this situation. They're thinking about what else can I do to better, to not get caught the next time, you know? So that's what I saw a lot of. So to me, it starts at home. You know, a lot of offenders just didn't get that love, you know? The love that they got it from the gangs. They got it from the street. Like you said, they had parents that were drug addicts, or they were in and out of incarceration. So that's where they learned it from. You know, I saw them coming in and out of prison, seeing their family members. I'm like, who's at home minding the business? Everybody's in here. I done seen a mother, a father, the son, and his wife, all of them, you know, in prison. But it's a mindset. I've also seen them go in there and do 10, 15 years and come out as successful and never go back again. But it's a mindset. So like I said, you guys are speaking on the political side and you got very good views on the political side of it. But you got to go all the way to DC to handle that. But to handle the at-home stuff, it starts in them streets. It starts at home, you know.
But WB, I gotta push back, and I know Dante gonna jump in there too, because again, when you say it's in the community, look at our communities. We don't got any communities. Our communities are terrible. You just said the mother, the father, the grandmother, they all in jail. Who's raising these kids? So when you say you got to stay away from it, the system has structurally put Black folks in the worst position in our communities. No jobs, redlining. They've taken everything away. You have no options but to survive.
But more than that, it's also, what are we contextualizing as criminality? What are we focusing our attention on? Because I would encourage you or invite you to think differently about even how we've been programmed to think about criminality. Again, you've got people in positions of power who make the laws, which means that they can do whatever it is they want, just as long as they don't get caught. And it's not just the design of the law. When you have the ability to decide and determine when you are going to enforce the law, who you will enforce it against, and who you will choose to not enforce it against at all, you've got not only over enforcement, a concentration of over enforcement or situation of that, but you've got under enforcement or the lack of enforcement in these other communities. So we're trying to talk about a situation where there's like a false equivalency from the beginning. And I believe so much of the problem with these conversations have to do with this presumption that the legal system as it stands is just this objective system. We're dealing with it, and Black people just seem to have a problem with it more because of our communities or because of this or because of that. When, again, and I'm going to say this, when I was getting my master's degree, and I could sit here and tell you the number of experiences that I've had personally with law enforcement, it would blow your mind. And I'm someone who has multiple degrees, who has been making, lots of money, who's owned several properties. But I'm getting my master's degree. I'm also, this is years ago. I'm not talking about in the present. I'm talking about almost 15 years ago. And I had gotten a job teaching as a substitute teacher with the Oakland Unified School District. I'm up at Skyline High School, and I decide to drive down the street to go sit in the park and eat my lunch. And I'm in my car. An officer pulls up behind me, blocks me in, gets out of his car and says, "Hey, we got a call that you were over here. We just came out here to do a welfare check. And I said, oh, well, everything's fine. And he says, well, can I see your license and your insurance? And I'm thinking to myself at this point, so I'm sitting here in park in my car. My car is off. It's not even on. And I'm eating my lunch, and you came to do a welfare check, but now you need to see my license, insurance, or registration. Something's off to me about that. Then he proceeds to ask me, are you on probation or parole? Right? So let me say this. I was doing my business, staying out of the good graces or the environment. I wasn't putting myself in any contact with the police. And this person proactively approached me. And I'm someone who's never had any contact with law enforcement in terms of any illegal activity, right? And so if I'm getting this treatment, and this is representative of several experiences that I've had, I cannot imagine what the hell that people who have had some contact with law enforcement or who have been set up, I cannot imagine what it is they're going through. And again, I think the onus, because we exist in an anti-Black society, is to make Black people out many times to be the villains, as though we're causing some type of havoc or some of these circumstances to come upon ourselves. I am not trying to say that, let me stop there. Let me stop.
Dante, you opened this joke up for me. You know your last name is King, Dante. You opened it up. Why would you give it to me? You know he was pulling you over because of your last name, Dante. You know that's what it was.
But Karen, I saw you shaking your head too. And I just want, she's a lawyer. Let's talk about the elephant. She's a white woman. Like, she gets like all of the under enforcement that happens within and amongst white people.
I have to say, Dante, when I get pulled over by the police, they are very cordial. Oftentimes, they don't even ask me for my license or registration. They'll just say, ma'am, your tail light is burned out. You need to get that checked. Or, ma'am, you were driving without your headlights on. Please put those on. Without even asking, like, they take one look at me and they immediately assess how they should treat me. One time, right around the time when Philando Castile was executed by the Minneapolis police, I was having dinner with a Black woman friend of mine, and we were talking about Philando Castile, who was pulled over for a burned out taillight. And then she drove me home a few blocks, not very far. She got pulled over by the police for having a burned out taillight, and she was trembling. She's like, Karen, I'm so grateful that you were in the car with me because you made me feel safe. Then if I was here by myself, I would be completely terrified. So what I want to say is I hope that white people are listening to this conversation, because white people, we are responsible for this mess. We created this mess, and only we can change it. And it has to begin by changing the way we view Black people, by healing from our intergenerational trauma caused by everything our ancestors have done to harm Black people, that is still in our epigenetics, that causes us in our interactions today. The other thing is, it's time to move beyond awareness to actually relinquishing our power and privilege, right? We cannot, this is the part where white people freeze up. They're like, oh, George Floyd was terrible. I went out and marched, blah, blah, blah. Well, what are you doing now? What are you doing now to change actual policies? What are you doing now to give up our privilege and say, I don't want this anymore? I want to relate across differences as equals. I want everyone to have a fair shot. And I'm going to take accountability and responsibility for the fact that my ancestors, were rewarded for being white, and how that has translated to my current position. I have to relinquish and give up and fight on the right side. And I see white people, I mean, we're obsessed with hip hop. We're over there at the jazz, SF Jazz, dancing around. We're going to see the Kehinde Wiley exhibit at the Young Museum. You know, if we're so attracted to and fans of Black culture, it's time for us to love Black people as much as we love Black culture and be in solidarity with them. Because I will add this, that while Black people are disproportionately killed by police, and unarmed Black people are disproportionately killed by police, the largest group of people killed by police every year are actually white people. That all of racialized capitalism has always been to harm all poor people, all working class people, and that white people have maintained white supremacy because we feel it makes us feel superior, even when our actual living conditions, even when our actual life trajectories would be improved if we got rid of racism and could actually form a unified class consciousness. And because our interests are the same, but we buy into, oh, I'm gonna uphold the Trump in office. I'm gonna uphold the 1%, and that's gonna make me feel good about myself because I'm white. When in fact we're struggling too.
But even the positionality of whiteness, you know, in needing other groups of people, namely Black people, to feel superior to, like that's of a psychotic nature.
That is
there's something very deliberately ill about that. The other thing, though, too, that I don't want to circumvent or exclude from this discussion is many times you hear, oh, well, if we have more Black people at the table, you can have many Black faces at the table who are possessed with and think in the ways that they have been indoctrinated to think, which is to be pro-white and anti-Black, and be doing things against the well-being and the welfare of Black people as a collective group as a whole. And this whole notion that someone has to be contributing something to this society in order to be deemed valuable or for their humanity to matter, I think that's a warped dynamic in and of itself. And the fact that we only value Black humanity when we are doing and acting in ways that white people have professed that we should be acting in, or behaving in ways that we should be acting. So if I'm getting good grades, if I'm making a high salary, if I look a certain way or am wearing a certain clothes, if I speak a certain way, if I have these degrees, then my humanity matters more than the another person, the person that's next to me. That's crazy. That's crazy. And you and I have talked about this, John. I mean, the harm that's done to our little Black babies when they're not doing well in this system, this educational system, where they're set up to fail. And what do? We chastise them. We berate sometimes who they are, which cuts into their confidences. And no one is going to thrive in a situation where they're being beat down. And I don't think that we give all of those issues enough credit in and of themselves. And so if you are growing up, i.e. in America, a negative situation, a negative fucked up situation where the everything in this culture, for the most part, is set up to work against you. And the only way that you can do well is to fall in line. And even when you do fall in line with the system, you're not guaranteed to do well. Then what then is the motivation? What then is the incentive? Because I know You know, I ran circles around most of the people I worked with. I was told, go to school, get degrees, do this, do that. I did all of those things, and I was still set up to fail working within these institutions. You know, and San Francisco is no better, having a lot of Black leadership in that city and county system. It is no better. I just walked away from that situation. So, I mean, we're doing, again, I say we are doing a hell of a job trying to survive in this culture where it is not guaranteed that we are going to do well, or that our families will.
Go ahead, Colin.
I wanted to speak a little bit about on the recidivism part of the conversation, because I think we miss the mark on the fact that, like John pointed out, it's our environment. And again, we don't hear these stories and we don't see these people as human beings, for the most part, who either made a mistake or were just going with the grain. And so I think it's really important. And also, the people who work in these correctional facilities also do a great job of telling these people that they're going to come back as they leave out the door. So I think it's really important for us to understand what the people who are in the criminal justice system, who have been a part of the criminal justice system, the children who are in the families of these people who are involved in the criminal justice system are going through. I've been to 3 women prisons in California. And out of the 4 women prisons in California, I've talked to thousands of women in there, and they've told me their stories. And a majority of them, the women that I've spoken to, have had family members who were into drugs or into other, things that were happening. The majority of the women in there at the age of 13 were being fed drugs by their family members. The youngest that I've heard was 10 years old, and she's been doing drugs ever since and been coming to jail ever since she could go to jail. And then we have people who have families who are a part of the mass incarceration, the false imprisonment, the crack epidemic era, that was raised without a family, without a sustainable living, who were trying to just make it out the mud. I had a recent show. I do theater now, and our company, formerly Incarcerated People's Project, Performance Project, is all formerly incarcerated people, and we tell our stories. And there's this one guy who told his story, and it was a story I'd never heard before. His mom was mentally ill. She hated him because he looked like his dad. She tried to shoot him with a shotgun. He moved with his cousin, and his cousin sold him to the gang so he could pay bills. This is how how people get into the criminal justice system. My story: I am a domestic violence survivor. I tried to get help many times. I would have a narcissistic parent who contributed to me being in this domestic violence relationship. I went to jail for protecting myself. And the woman cop that was there took so much pleasure in demoralizing me and taking my hair out for me and laughing because I looked miserable in my mugshot, which I didn't belong in. My first time ever incarcerated. I was in a holding tank. I thought I was in prison already. You couldn't tell me nothing. And that was before I even had a record. And then the men that I've met that have been through sexual assault, the men that I've met that have been hurt and abused as children, whose parents were forced into prostitution. Many of the women that I met in there as young as 16 years old are formerly or still in prostitution. There's no way that you and had what we call gorilla pimps. If y'all don't know what that is, someone who it's forced you, beats you into submission, and are now forced into this lifestyle. Cried. I heard them crying nights, wishing that they could have did something else. We had these conversations. I wish I could have went to the Air Force. I wish I could have did this. Wish I could have did that. But they can't because they're in the game now. It's over. That's what they feel like. Their life is over. A lot of the men feel like their life is over because guess what society tells you? When you come home, we don't got nothing for you. Most people parole transient. Transient means you don't have anywhere to live. When you are transient, you go to a halfway house. The halfway house is in a drug-ridden area, and a lot of people have substance abuse issues. So you go to a drug-ridden area, you can't find a job because nobody will hire you because you have a record. You become somewhat complacent and comfortable in prison because you found a family. Let's just be real now. Now you have people with, y'all have common struggles, common factors that commonalities that you now have this family that you call prison. So it's nothing to go back. I know what it is. I know the procedures, how it works, all the stuff. It's nothing to go back. So we got to really talk about the system of recidivism.
Very powerful stuff. I think that's what it is. But colleagues, go ahead. I know you've been trying to get in there. Go ahead, colleagues.
So I have a problem. So a lot of times minors end up in prison. Everybody's not built for prison. You really can mess up a child, a good child, by sending them off to prison. And they come out and sometimes they go right back. Can y'all please elaborate on that subject? Because when they're young and they've been shipped off to prison and they come back different and you witness everything about that minor different, it's not a good thing. And those minors going to prison early, sometimes it creates a vicious cycle. So please talk about our babies going to prison.
Well, I think you saw that even when we look at the, what are they calling them now? The exonerated 5, with what happened to those young men who were minors, whose families in some cases couldn't afford representation. And, out of ignorance, a few of them made, plea deals or what have you. And it totally changed who they were. Of course, it is a vicious experience. I, similarly to you, Precious, I since 2016, 17, I've corresponded with many men who are behind bars. I've donated more than $100,000 of my own money, sending care packages to people, getting plane tickets for people's family members to go and see them, spending a ton of money just so people could have stamps on their JPay, and doing a whole lot of advocacy. And the stories that you hear, I think this is is so layered. A few points I wanted to make, though, is that it does change who someone is. And even though to WB's point earlier, there are sometimes resources available that can help people rehabilitate through that experience. I mean, if we want to use that term, rehabilitate. But for the most part, it is not set up to do that. You also take, for example, the young guy, Khalif Browder, who they did a documentary on. He remained in jail only because they didn't process it. They didn't process him accurately. And then it became a situation of whether he was able to afford bail. And what happened to that young man when he was released from Rikers? He committed suicide. So yeah, I mean, it's disruptive to one's spirit, one's psyche, everything. And when your mental, emotional, and spiritual state are corrupted or are decimated, that's it. That's it for you as a person.
Yeah, I gotta ask WB something. I'm glad you brought that up, colleagues, because too many times when you talk about when people come home, they're different. We talk about the prison rape, the prison gangs, right? And I know there's been a number of asks to try to segregate the prisons and not isolate people by race. You look at the other models across the world where they don't have bars. Then I think it's like in Australia, a different place. They have little apartment style type places or whatever where they live in there. Like, are we at a point of change in how we look at the prison industrial complex? Because I think the prison structure also causes these problems when they come back to our community with segregation. You deal with people when you talk about mental health. It's hard to change these people. If you've been to prison, a young man, and this is why I'm not for charging young people, putting them in these prison situations. And I've been on calls with our district attorney in San Francisco, and I'm fighting against young people. Is you can't take a 17, 18-year-old kid and send them to one of these prisons that they not cut out for. You know what I mean? A lot of these kids, they come into prison, they come in juvenile hall. That's a whole different animal. But you turn 17, 18 years old, and then you throw them in San Quentin, or you throw them in Folsom, or you throw them in one of these prisons, they're going to commit suicide most of the time. They cannot program up and do that type of program. 23 hours locked down, most young people who never had that experience. You take a kid from the community, 15, 16, 17 years old, commit a crime, you put them in there with the adults. They're sitting in the East Coast where they, it's the tremendous amount of suicide in the prisons on the East Coast where they have those laws where they're sending young people directly to prison at 16, 17. It just, the suicide rate is out of control. But WB, you got 29 years experience in and out. You understand the segregation. You understand those models. How do we break that down and fix that? Because I think if you start by, you could break up some of that stuff if you let people. And I know people say, oh, no, if you let the blacks and the Mexicans and these people come together, it's going to be wars. But how do you change that? How do you implement that and make that change?
It's training. It's training. And when Precious spoke on it, there's that sensitivity. I was a field training officer. I retired as a sergeant. I have accolades. I spoke. I did the Bring Your Kids to Work. I went to school for career days. I was that sergeant. I was that sergeant that reprimanded someone if I overheard them saying something to an inmate like, oh yeah, you'll be back and all of that. No, it's training. It's that sensitivity training that leads to those inmates in there who, yeah, you're right. I heard a guy, I've had him as young as 14 years old in an adult institution. And I heard this older man tell this guy, yeah, because your daddy wasn't there and all of that. Yeah, he got reprimanded for that. Yeah, I don't play that. It comes with that training, that sensitivity training, you know what I mean? So that you can lead them. I worked in a correctional and rehabilitation center so that you can lead them in the right direction. And like I said, I did 29 years. And I remember one time 20 years ago, ran to this young kid. He was working in Home Depot. And he pulled me up and he said, Miss Brown, that conversation you had with me, I never returned back to jail. And I owe that to you. Absolutely. And if I only got that once, I got it a lot. But if I only got that once in my 29 years career, I did my job. Unfortunately, I have a sister. She lives in St. Louis and she got caught up in a domestic situation with this guy. And she ended up the one in prison because of his lies and all this, that, and the other. And she called me and she told me that she asked the officer, can she get some water? And the man told her, that's what the toilet is for. Oh, I was on the phone talking to talking to that administration. He needs training. I need to know that he got that training as well. But yeah, it starts with that training and the officer. They just hiring people off the street that don't care. You know what I mean? I was an officer. I cared, but yeah, so that's where it comes from. It boils down to the training of an officer and how they're going to deal with
so
that.
Can I ask you this? Let me ask you something real quick, Dante, because I'm in these meetings and they spend a lot of money on training. Even I've been to stuff at San Quentin and some of the stuff that they're doing, we do it, but it's still a problem, right? And the more access, right, as technology changes, the cell phone, the amount of drugs inside of the prisons, and then the staff, like you said, the staff bringing in the drugs. I mean, they had a big thing on the news about San Quentin, all these people bringing cell phones and all. How do we fix this problem? Because it's just, it is great because there are officers and folks who are like you that's really there working, trying to bring up the people.
But it's sad.
That's so small.
It's sad to say that you also have criminals wearing that badge. That's what it is.
Come on, WB. That's where I was
what
going.
it is. You got criminals wearing the badge as well. So,
and I was going to ask you though too. Do you feel like it was the training that you received from your home and community as well? Because you just strike me to be a person with balance, you know. And you didn't.
Absolutely. I grew up in a 2-parent household, and there was 6 of us. 3 boys, 3 girls. All 3 of my brothers were drug addicts, but they were functional addicts. None of us never went to jail. You know what I mean? Our parents instilled that discipline in us. They instilled that fear in us, and they wanted to see us all succeed. Like I said, despite my brothers being drug addicts, they all still was functional addicts.
But you were also given a certain level of respect for your parents, for community, for older people. And,
absolutely.
And so, John, like no one, because this was my issue when we went to train the people in San Francisco Police Department, no one can train good values into you. No one can train good ethics and morals into you. And I remember sitting in those rooms with mostly white and Asian officers and thinking to myself, oh my God, are these the people who have been hired into jobs to police the city and county of San Francisco? Because Black people are screwed. You have people there who receive a certain type of militaristic training. I mean, that's what law enforcement is all about. It's military style. It's a military organization, right? But these people are not coming from familiar family structures where they're being told you need to have a respect for people, you know, treat people with from based on decent or balanced ethical standards. Or no, you are getting people who are that we would you know, who are many times, and there's a book about this. The author, Nancy, I think her name is Eisenberg, she wrote a book called White Trash. That's typically who you are getting. And Karen alluded to this at the beginning of the conversation. That's who you are getting to go and become law enforcement officials. You are handing these people power and the responsibility to police other people. And many of these people are insecure because they can't comprehend beyond the 1st grade level. They're insecure because they've never made it to where they want to be in life. And so they come through this organization. They're now given an ability to wield power over other people that they consider inferior, or because they have an axe to grind, and they are going out policing our people with anger. They're going out to look because they have an appetite. They got into this for the wrong reasons. And so even like to WB's point, you've got criminals who are wearing the badge. That's a whole other topic of discussion that we need to devote another segment to.
Right.
Definitely.
Another thing is accountability. A lot of the officers aren't held accountable for their actions as well. You know, so and like you said, and the higher ups are protecting them.
At WB, we got a problem, especially in our correctional systems. I know you guys been seeing all the viral videos of these correctional officers sleeping with the inmates. Crazy. So that just tells you
that's always been. That's always
no,
been.
But that's what I'm saying. That just goes to tell you that these people aren't equipped. Because if you think it's okay to be in the prison, not only in the prison but filming, you know what I mean? It's like this is the kind of people they don't even. This is like I'm like, who are we hiring?
These are the people that's you know, guarding the inmates. Yeah, you're right.
It's terrible. I mean, we got some work to do, community. When we talk about accountability, I'm going to keep pushing. You know, in San Francisco, they talk about body cameras for everybody. I'm going to say it. We need all of our correctional officers with body cameras. We got to have a level of accountability. If we don't start finding out and figuring out how to make these changes, these systems, the destruction. Because if we're going to remove people from the community, we're supposed to be giving them an opportunity to come back ready to go. And it's just not there. The level of education services. I mean, I'm definitely against anybody working in any prisons for any wages for any of these corporations. It's just a model that just has to be removed. We got to change that. All of these leaders
about the jobs. Now, I do know that there are opportunities for second chances. I work with people now. I work at the stadium part-time at Allegiant Stadium here in Las Vegas. I work with people there with ankle monitors on. So the jobs are out there. The second chances are out there. You know, working when I worked where I retired from, I've seen them get out and come back up there and visit their homeboy that's in there, but they got a job now. So the jobs are out there.
But I'm talking about
there's far and few.
But WB, I'm talking about these prison systems who are charging inmates 60 cents an hour, $6 an hour, like Precious is saying, and they're selling our license plates to taxpayers for hundreds of dollars. These businesses building furniture. I've been in these programs, and this is slavery. You cannot do this. Is what's destroying the very economy that we're trying to, because now they got coders in prison that these companies are using. They paying them 6 cents an hour. So now people on the streets are not even getting that opportunity. Like, this model has to change. And if we don't react, if we don't become radical, we are headed in this country in a bad, bad place. You think the numbers of prison is going up 3 years? No, it's going to increase triple. Look at the jobless market. People are out. Have y'all looked at the news lately? Have you seen all of the crazy stuff that's going on right now? You think people just doing that because they want to do it? When you start putting the financial strain on the communities even more than what it is, especially in San Francisco, the cost of living is out of the roof. The cost of doing business is out of the roof. The level of opportunities is out of the roof. You're going to keep pushing people in the corner. You think they're running into these Rolex stores, robbing in broad daylight, all these shootings happening in broad daylight, all of these robberies happening in broad daylight, because this is what they want to do when you don't have the opportunities and you invest in more into the prisons, because these companies like Twitter, Facebook, Google, see those 20,000 people that they're willing to let go. They're ready to invest in those prisons and teach those inmates behind the wall and pay them dirt cheap. And this is what's happening. This model is happening across this country. And if we don't say something, we in trouble, community. We in trouble. But
we also have to talk about the fact that California, I hate to say it like this, but like California it's a good place to be in prison because we have so many opportunities for different programs, and it's really just for the men, and it's really just for San Quentin, but that's besides the point. But like, there's really like we have a different way that we operate than any other state that I have ever been in. Like I said, I worked in 14 states. I had a woman in Indiana. We, taught people how to code. This is a great job. There's a lot of money in it. Her judge wouldn't even give her a second chance to even look at freedom, even though she has this opportunity to be a computer engineer. Like, it's not the same here as it is in a lot of other states. We had an interview with Ali Sadiq, and he talks about how he was in prison in Texas. There's no programs there at all. There's no programs for there. There's no hope, none of that. Like, we have to think bigger than where we are, because this is hurting a lot more than just us here. And yes, you can see that there are few in between opportunities here for us, but as a whole, as a community, we are suffering. And I think we're talking a lot about inside of prison and things like that, but we really have to speak about before they get there, because our young people are traumatized. And I even see like the buy gun thing, which is, I'm not advertising for like guns or anything, but you take a young person's gun and give them what? If they're traumatized, if they're in a situation where they don't feel safe, what else are you giving them? In place of that, what else are you giving them to make them feel safe, to make them know that they have opportunities to be something else, opportunities to grow, opportunities for something better? There is a community right now in San Francisco with no water, with holes in their ceilings, with mold on their walls, and the city and county of San Francisco is not doing anything about it. They're living in poverty right now and still paying rent, which is crazy. but we're not talking about the trauma and the trauma support that our young people in and out of prison or incarceration need.
But also too, and I said this on the front end, but there's also this dynamic that I continue to emphasize. And in my book, I share several examples where these white men who were brought up on charges and in some cases even convicted of committing the act of rape. And each of the judges were like, oh, but prison is not the right choice for them. You know, we're going to give them probation, or we're going to strike a plea deal. And in one case with the guy, I think his name was, it's escaped me right now, but this guy, he had raped 4 girls, okay? And he was facing 8 years in prison. The judge gave him 8 years probation. So
let me tell
what I'm saying is that we can't even begin to wrap our heads around what it means to not be Black, because we don't get those types of benefits of the doubt because we've got good character witnesses, or because we come from good families, or because it's presumed that, you know, we're not going to continue to commit these offenses over and over and over again. But the question that I want to ask all of you, and it's rhetorical, what if we did, y'all? If we did, we'd be having an entirely different conversation here.
Well, Dante,
yeah, and I have a story.
We have to be honest. The justice system, they don't lock up white people. They don't lock up Asian people. They only lock up Black and brown people and people of color. I experienced it here in the city of San Francisco. I've watched Asian kids come in for some of the serious crimes, walk right out the back door. I've seen white kids cause heinous crimes in this city, and they walk right out the back door. But Lil Ray, Lil Pookie come in there, they got to sit down for a year.
It's presumed.
I mean, that's just what it is. And at some point, we just have to call it what it is. This country is built on locking up Black and brown people, and that's their business. That's just what it is.
Yeah, and they also have poor representation. Like, most Black and brown people have to have district attorneys, and we know the district attorney, either they played this fool. My brother is incarcerated right now. His district attorney and his lawyer is working 5 other cases. This is similar to his, and he feels like he's not getting any attention at all. I was just so happy, so lucky to have a lawyer who actually, you know, I was her first case, and she was very attentive to me. But my situation is so far and few between. And even to Dante's point, I was in my arraignment was watching someone. I mean, in my what's it called, sentencing, was watching someone's arraignment, and I watched 2 cases. One, a young Black man who got 15 years to life for brandishing a gun. If you know, that's just like waving it around. And then the next case was a white man who got 2 years for 8 sexual assaults in a pool at Berkeley College. And he got 2 years after he got to finish his degree at the same college he was sexually assaulting these women at. And I just knew I was going under the jail. But like, we don't get that. Like, it's not the same. It's not the same for us.
No, it's definitely not. And we got to come up with some ways to fix the system. We talk about public defendership. We talk about the district attorneys of each county. You know, we got to remove these plea bargain deals, because these plea deals is what's also hurting our community. It's railroading our community, these deals, because like you said, there's so many cases that they don't even have time to properly investigate them. So they just pressuring young Black and brown kids to make decisions because they don't even have time to investigate it, right? So I think that's what I'm saying. This model of the whole system has to be looked at and dismantled. We're going to say dismantle. We're going to dismantle the way the models is. But it starts with again, however you, like Dante said, we still got to work with these elected officials. We still got to work with the district attorneys and the public defenders. We still got to work with the police. And this is why I tell Black folks in our community, we know we don't want to deal with the police. It's always a conflict. But I keep telling these people in the community, we got to start having a conversation. We're going to have to engage if we won't change. We can't just keep shooting and spouting out all the things that the police is doing and nobody want to get involved. We got to sit at these tables. And I agree with Dante. Everybody can't come to the table, but we got to have conversations, community. We can't just sit back and say, oh, that's the police. I don't want to talk to them. Oh, that's Chief Scott. I don't want to talk with him. Oh, that's the public defender. Like, we got to have conversations.
Is weak. I wouldn't sit down with Chief Scott if you paid me. Okay. Nothing has gotten done in the city and county of San Francisco since Chief Scott has arrived. He's weak. He has weak leadership. They need to get a real person in there who is Black, who actually cares about Black people, and who wants to see something change in terms of an investment that is made into the Black community. And I'm not talking about nonprofits. I'm talking about changing the lives of Black individuals in San Francisco. And that is not Chief Scott. That was a political move for him. He was not from San Francisco. He doesn't have any investment in the Black community in San Francisco. The same for Brooke Jenkins, who's a puppet who replaced Chesa Boudin. So that's a whole other discussion too. Anyway, I'm sorry. That was a trigger for me.
But Dante, I want to say this though. If we don't change the policies and the laws, how are we going to get people from community in these positions?
The problem doesn't exist within the policies and the laws, John. That's where people.
It does. No, it does. Because let me tell you why.
It exists in the enforcement. In very subjective enforcement. For example, you got laws that on the books right now that say you can't discriminate against people. Is discrimination happening every day? Absolutely. And that has to do with the activities of people. That does not have to do with the blanket standing of what the law or what policies say, because we've developed the policies. We've developed laws that say that X is supposed to happen instead of Y. And we see the opposite happening within our community, or as it pertains to Black people.
But Dante, my question to you is this. When have any police chief in San Francisco been able to do anything? When have any district attorney in San Francisco been able to do anything? Because it's a system problem. It's a system problem.
You're the one who said
we had our famous Vice President Kamala Harris as the district attorney, and she locked up more Black folk than any district attorney. So when have we ever had?
We have Pamela Price in Alameda County right now. Chesa did something. Chesa prosecuted SFPD officers the first time in San Francisco's history that San Francisco police officers.
And I know Miss Price, and I know her well. And I give her a couple years, and everybody gonna be screaming and complaining about her as well, because this system is the problem. That's what I'm saying. Dismantle the system. It's not the people.
Well, no, that's BS, John. It is the people. It is. And when you have weak leaders who are only interested in advancing themselves, advancing their political agenda, and advancing their careers, and not what's good for people, you're always going to have this problem. And I agree with you. The system is messed up. So we know that.
But Dante, if you put the people in place, no matter what they try to change, it's pushback and there is an opposition on everything. What else do you do? All you can do is go to try to uplift your career, because you know you can't do anything. If your hands is tied, how can you swing, Dante?
Yeah.
Come on, Dante. How do you swing when your hands is tied?
That's what happened to Michelle Obama.
I'm just saying. So again, I agree with you, but this is my thing. We have to dismantle, and it starts all the way at the top, law of the land. We got to get rid of the Constitution. We got to get away with these lifetime judges. We got to make term seatings for all political people in all Senate, Congress, all the way down to the government, to the city and counties, all the way. If we don't do that, it's not going to change. Like I told everybody, y'all worried about the Ninth Circuit judges. How many of these federal judges, 297 federal judges that Trump appointed while he was in office, and they models reflect everything against Black folks? And they get to sit on these seats forever because why? Our community's not educated. We don't know how to go through the civil process to remove them. People in our community don't even know how to
John, there you go with placing blame on Black people. It has nothing to do with us not being educated. It has nothing to do with us.
It does. Listen,
it has all the education in the world with how to change these systems. And as long as we are outnumbered by white people and Asian people and Hispanic people and Black people who don't care anything about Black people, we're still going to be dealing with the same issue. The problem is not being educated.
You do. I'm not saying you got to go through an educational system, but you have to understand the process.
See, John,
we got a whole community of people.
I love you, but when we start getting on this anti-Black stuff,
listen, Dante, we gonna collide. We got another joke. We're gonna collide about this.
Hey,
if I see Khalees over there, because she know I'm about to get it.
No, but y'all both right. Like we need both. We need education about our systems that we're in now, and we also do need to dismantle the system, now. But I mean, whenever we can get the education, because without the education and people don't understand what they're actually signing up for. Take for instance the Stefan, I don't want to get his name wrong, but the guy that was shot and killed by the police, and the NAACP helped them create a bill for that. I was not understanding how we were excited about this bill, because also in the clause of the bill, it says that the police cannot be held accountable anymore for any more of these kinds of incidences. But nobody understood that because they weren't actually educated on how the bill was written. And this is how we end up electing and putting into these processes and procedures that we don't understand.
But again, like I said, so let's say we got a bill that said police are now going to be held accountable, right? How many entities or regions around this country or court systems do you believe are actually going to hold those police officers accountable? They could even be brought up on charges, but when the cases go to court, those charges, whether it's by a jury trial or a judge, are most likely going to be thrown out. And that's what I'm saying.
Which is why I said that you are right as well, because while we still have the people who are in positions of power that do not uphold the law, just like you said, you were in your car and you were doing nothing wrong, you have the right to tell them, no, I'm not going to give you anything. No, I don't want to speak to you. No, you cannot check me. However, as a Black man and you being looked at as a threat, you can be assaulted and illegally held captive in the eyes of the law by a police officer because you were not abiding by their feelings, not by the law, but by their feelings, which is why I said it's important that we have both the education and we also have the people to understand what is happening and how we move forward.
We definitely need the people. We need the people that's innovative, ready to take risks, do something different, and put the mechanisms in place to hold accountability. Only time you get accountability held is with mechanism. So to hold the police accountable, make every officer hold insurance. Because then if every officer has to hold insurance, that's how I had the lady on our DPA on here the other week. See, if you make every officer get insurance, now you have an outside entity that can hold the city and counties accountable. Then you take away the grand jury process. Then you remove their pension and retirement. I guarantee you the crime that police are doing will slow down. Because right now in San Francisco, you can shoot somebody and you still get your pension and retirement as a police officer. You get what I'm saying? You got to put the mechanisms in place. When you shoot somebody, if that officer has so many misconducts, the insurance agents, the premiums going to go up on those cities. They're going to move those officers out there. That's just how it works. Because you cannot count on the police commission. You can't count on DPA. And you can't count on internal affairs to deal with those issues. You have to put a third-party process in place that will hold them accountable. And we know everything in these cities and counties is about money. So if you tie it to money, you change the process.
Most of the business that gets done in City Hall does not happen without the police union signing off on that business that gets done. Okay? They run every city. Like Karen said on the front end of this discussion, these people are part of super groups. You can think of them as super PACs that give money to political figures. They put their hands in people's pockets. So all of this stuff that we're talking about in terms of dismantling the system, we're doing it without understanding or without a nuanced, not nuanced understanding, but without maintaining the political power, the political and economic power that
we are the political power, though, because we are the people, and the people create the systems.
That's
for the laws.
naive.
The problem is we don't have the education to
That's
know
naive.
that we are the power. What we need is, like John Henry said, and I'm going to keep saying this because he needs to hold his position as the leader. You know what I'm saying? The Black Panthers were not PhD educated. They were the people, and the people hold the power on what the institution of America is going to do. So if
what you were saying,
hold our position of power and actually become educated on what's happening and how we want to move forward, not this divided, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this.
Precious,
we need to hold
is true
on one mission.
If the very thing that you
Dante,
just
let her
said,
finish, Dante. I want to hear. See, this is why I can never end my show. Everything get good at the end. We got to get out of here in a second, but go ahead, Precious. It did, Dante.
If the very thing that she just said was true, that we are the people and we are the power, then there would be no need for this discussion today.
That's not true because of trauma. You see what happens with every revolution, there comes a moment of trauma. If there wasn't a moment of trauma, we would still have Black Wall Street. If there wasn't a moment of trauma, we still would have Martin Luther King. If there wasn't a moment of trauma, then we would still have the Black Panthers. If there wasn't a moment of trauma, we still would have this. And the things that we're going through right now are a direct reflection of the traumas that the Black community have been getting put through. And we don't
I agree with that.
We don't never talk about that. We just talk about the fact that we're scared to move forward.
It has nothing to do with our education. It has to do with the fact that we don't control our own legal system. We don't control our own economic system. We don't control our political system. The truth of the matter is that Black people in this country have no political power. We do not, as our own racial subgroup in this culture. And if we did, if we had political power, if we had the type of economic power that we're talking about, that certain groups have, we wouldn't be having this discussion today. There would be no need.
What about Black Wall Street?
Dante, let me say this.
Black Wall Street was
This is why I say we got to dismantle the Constitution and the way the processes is. Because you're right. We shouldn't have money and lobbying for political seats. We should take the money part out, right? Then you get the real people. Because we know it's money driven. But the other thing is this, Dante. The people does have the power.
Which people are you talking
about? All people. But you know what? But I'm gonna speak about Black folks. I'm not even gonna talk about all. I'm gonna talk about Black folks. Okay, this is a Black conversation, Dante. This is what I'm gonna say. This is what I know we gotta get out of here. But this is what I'm gonna say, Dante. The reason why Black folks can't move ahead with this political process.
Oh, it's just one reason, John? You're going to give me
it's a multitude. I'm going to give you this because you know I always say this. I know this is going to irritate you. Black folks know too much history and they know too much Democratic Party. That's our problem. That's what we got to get rid of. When we get rid of all the historic crap and we get rid of this Democratic thinking, then our Black people will move forward. Because the Democratic process is the problem. This is why people can't move forward. You know why? Because they lied to us and they dangle their little, we're going to give you some social justice. And it is nothing. We need to create the all people party, the Black people party. Since everybody follow our influence and our lead, Black people, let's create our own party.
Here we go.
Well, listen. We already late. I'm getting phone calls and messages. We got to go today. This conversation is going to continue. We're going to have a part 2, but we got to deal with some child support issues because we got some pressing bills that are going on. I'm glad Dante brought that up because I am dealing with some stuff right now with some Senate bills. And what I'm learning in these bills, Dante, is you could go for the things that's going to impact your people, but then there's always some stuff in there that's going to not be so great. So it's like you never get a perfect bill on the Senate floor. And I'm learning it as I'm going through this political process. My organization is doing a lot to try to help folks with child support issues. And it's just terrible because, you know, there's a couple things in there that you like, this will benefit our people. But inside of that, there's 1,000 other things that's terrible. So how do you get a clean bill? It's a challenge. But with that being said, community, it's been a great conversation. It's been very, very.
Can I play a quick clip, John?
Yes, go ahead. Anything you want, Dante. I know you ain't gonna get out of here without a clip. Go ahead.
You know, don't do me like that, John. Okay, so
you know I love you, brother. Go ahead. We can make time for the king. Dante King is here.
When you're in your own nation, in your own land, you're in a position to get justice. But when you're in another man's country, in another man's land, under another man's flag, and under another man's government, and under another man's court system, you have to look to that other man for justice, and you'll never get it. And Negroes in this country probably are authorities on that.
So,
Dante, you know I'm about to hit you with this because I know you always bring good historic information. Where do we go? If America is not the place, where do we go, Dante? You got to give me a solution because we know America ain't right. Where do black people go? We going to Jamaica, Dante? Tell me where we going.
No, because I think Black Americans, like, we are our own group, right? Like, we are our own culture of people. But I do think that we need to be in a cultural context where we are separate, where we just can exist on our own. So we may be still dealing with the issues of class, of sex, but at least we're not dealing with being public enemy number one in a situation where we are not wanted, in a cultural context where we are not wanted. When I talk to African people, specifically African Nigerian people, African Ghanaian people, yeah, they're dealing with having been colonized as well, but they don't have the same type of psychic trauma, the same type of emotional trauma that we carry as African Americans, because where they come from, everyone's Black for the most part. They're not dealing with anti-Blackness. They're dealing with a whole host instead of other issues. So we have to get away because it's not even just a white-Black dynamic anymore. You have to understand, like Dr. Claude Anderson said, you know, a few decades ago, we're dealing with other groups who have been brought to this country, who have been prioritized above Black people in this country. And then we've got to worry about even some of the people that look like us who don't have our best interest at heart. So, you know, we have to do some soul searching, but Malcolm X said we need to be separate. And I'm of that school of thought too.
So we're going back to segregation, right? Blacks and whites separate, huh?
Not segregation, separation.
Well, I'm gonna just tell you like this because I just talked to some African people this weekend, and they got the same oppressive behaviors happening within the culture. Black folks oppressing Black folks. We got a terrible situation in this world, and it's going to take us as the people to come together with some love, some healing. Again, the fastest way to repair the harm. We're going to have to invest in mental health like we invest in COVID because the trauma and the pain and the PTSD that has taken place in this country.
But we need to have the type of solidarity that white men have. Did you see all of those people who said,
no, you're not going to say that, Dante. Don't you say that on my platform, Dante.
I know that Trump violated the law. I know that Trump broke the law. Yeah, he was asking me to break the law. Would you still vote for him? Yes. I would. Do you understand that type of solidarity? No matter how much wrongdoing you do, you're always right, and there's still going to be a level of support for you and community.
Dante, I'm not going to let you do that on my show, Dante. Michelle Obama said when they go low, we going high. We don't want to do that.
No, I'm going lower. I'm going lower. And again, support and love and peace to all Black people who are out here trying to do the best that they can do to survive. You know, as long as no one is getting hurt, do what you need to do to survive. That's what we are in. I don't want
my people lying, being like them other people, Dante. We can't lie. We got to hold people accountable. Dante, you done turned my show out there. Y'all see what Dante did me? You almost pulled a half one. I'm gonna let you go on this one, Dante. Hey, but we got to get out out of here, community. Before we leave every Sunday conversation, we always want to leave our panelists to give away some parting words to our community, some encouraging words. This conversation has been touching, it's been triggering, it's been emotional, it's been real, and I appreciate it. I hope the community appreciate the folks and the insight. We got some work to do, and it's going to take us all. I agree with Dante when he says solidarity. It's going to take everybody working together, even our allies, even the white folks out there that's watching. We need you to step up and be accountable. We've had a George Floyd bill that still haven't passed the Congress floor. So what are we marching for? My young people have it right. They tired of marching. They want to cut the money. They say, John, we can't march anymore. We got to stop spending the money. If money is the power, money is the reason while things are going the way they're going, how do we as a country, how do we as people hold our money back from these very, very industries that depend and I can't even get the words. I'm going to perpetuate this hate and stuff into our policies. We got to figure out a way. It's going to take all of us, but we do need to walk in solidarity. Black people, we got to work together. We got to work out our differences. And we got to move together. We got to stop cutting these backdoor deals and selling each other out. Because we're doing the same thing that the slave masters have been doing for hundreds of years. And Dante is going to talk about that.
Who are you talking about, John? Call out some names. Call out some names, John.
I'm not calling out. They already know what it is, Dante. I've already called them out. See, Dante trying to start something today. Community. Dante will be back on in a couple of weeks for Educational Thursday. 2 hours, me and him and colleagues, and we'll get into all this stuff. But with that being said, I want to give everybody an opportunity, give any shout outs, any part words to the community. I really appreciate you all being here. And I know it's been a challenge when you got this many people to get through this conversation. But Precious, I want to start with you now. I'll move to Dante across the screen. Just give some parting words. If you want to give any shout outs, if you want to talk about any projects you upcoming, this is your time to promote and just give something back to the people. We need something after this conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. It's always a good time on here. Look, this is good. I'm all wound up. I don't know what to do with this energy. But yes, contact me. My information is up on the screen. I have wellness workshops. I am doing another performance on my story on the April 25th at the Berkeley Marsh. And then I am doing group mental health see, y'all got me all riled up. I can't speak. Group mental health coaching, where we just, talking about wellness, self-care, and things like that. And I have a workshop coming up mid-April for free. It's going to be on the Eventbrite. So yeah, follow me at a Pocket of Sunshine, APKT of Sunshine on Instagram, and you'll be able to catch up on all the things.
And definitely just want to commend you and thank you for being here. Make sure you get all your flyers and your event stuff over to us so we can help blast that out so people show up and support the work you're doing. You're a tremendous freedom fighter, and we appreciate the work that you do for the community, for the people. And I know at some point we'll definitely be linking up, trying to figure out how we can work together, dismantle the system that needs to be dismantled. We're going to work together, Precious. We'll figure out a way, but we're going to dismantle what's going on. We'll figure it out. We could just put our brains together and we're going to figure it out. Because we're coming up with new ideas. You see, at both sides of the conversation, we're doing all kind of stuff. We're coming up with our own new culture. We calling ourselves something other than African-American. We're going to come up with everything new. We're going to be innovative in 2023. So looking forward to having conversations with you up in the future, Precious. And you're welcome here anytime you're part of both sides of the conversation family. If there's any topics or conversations you feel you want to jump in and be a part of it, your perspective is important. You're part of the community, and we thank you for being here today. All right, now we got Brother Dante King. Come on up, brother. Give something to the people.
Well, I think I've said a lot. The only thing I would reinforce is for people to go to my website, which is danteking.com, and please subscribe to my website. This book that I wrote last year, The 400-Year Holocaust, if you haven't read it, please go and purchase it. You can get it at all retailers, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can go to my website and get it. It's there. Make it a read with your family and friends, though. I wrote it for Black people, for Black well-being, so that we could have language on our own terms, to be able to name our own experiences, and to also validate ourselves and to validate each other. But we need to understand that anti-Blackness is a sickness. It is. It's a psychological sickness, and it has to be rooted out. And it's not Black people's problem. It's other people's problem. But we have been casualties of it. We remain casualties of it because we've ingested a lot of it ourselves. So I'll just stop there. Thank you, John, for the work that you are doing, for having these platforms, and for being the leader that you are in the community. Thank you, Khalees, too, for your leadership. I've had the pleasure to interact with you several times, and I just really appreciate your energy. And WB, it was a pleasure meeting you, and you too, Precious, and good to see you, Karen.
All right. Hey, Dante, you know I love you, brother. You know it is no holds barred with us. I always appreciate you. And that's what this is all about. Just having different perspectives. And, the book has just been very powerful for me. Sometimes I sit there, I read chapters, I just want to cry. I'm like, ah! You bring me back into this mode. You know what I'm saying? You bring me back into the past. I'm thinking about walking down and picking cotton and all this craziness. So you always got me on a mental trauma, Dante. I have to go do self-healing after I read a couple chapters, okay? But thank you for the book, though. It's very, very important to community. Please go out there and get the book. Support the brother. Y'all know I got my copy because I always support my people. And it's something good. And we talk about the Black history that we don't get in this racist school system. And Dante really outlines a lot of this stuff that people in community should know and hear about. So thank you again, Dante. We'll see you in a couple of weeks because I know you're going to be coming back to do an educational Thursday, and we're looking forward to that. It'll be a great one. All right, WB, come on, 29 years of institutional knowledge. Come on, WB, holla at the people.
Elise and John, thanks for what you're doing. You're doing a great job with both sides of the conversation. I really enjoyed interacting with you guys today and letting you hear my side of corrections. I want to end it in, it does begin with, like I said, at home. It begins in the home, as well as in law enforcement. It begins with training. Training goes along with education. So if we can get in there and get some training and education in the system, then maybe that could be a start, if anything. So I didn't put my Twitter or Facebook or Instagram in there because my page is all, shenanigans. So I don't have no business. I've retired. I just do my little part-time job at Allegiant Stadium. So I don't really have no business to shout out or anything like that. But I will shout out my wife. If you're ever in Vegas, she's a top hairstylist. Come and sit in Rashida's chair. So that's what I'm giving my shout out to.
Yeah, definitely.
I told her. Thank you guys. A pleasure speaking with you, Precious, and you, Miss Karen. You guys take care. And I plan to visit again as well.
And WB, I was just down in Vegas. I just came back today. I was looking for it. I was gonna get my glue on. They said I needed it.
And I just got back from LA today. I was in LA for the weekend. I just got back this morning myself. So
no, we appreciate her and the work, and we just happy to have you here. And thank you for being a part of this powerful conversation. And definitely, anytime you want to jump in, I know it's a lot of conversation. I know you be checking us out. If you ever want to come on, just go ahead and jump on. You're part of the family.
Thank you.
All right. Miss Karen. Oh, Miss Karen. She's not the Karen community that's out there calling 911 on Black folks, okay? That's not the Karen, all right? Miss Karen, how you doing? Go ahead and talk to the people.
I totally agree with you that we have to change the Constitution. And I think the place where we can start is local. Because that's where we build up the base that then can start to change the Constitution. It's like, how can we work within our local community and give people hope by seeing a tangible change in the local community? And I would say we here in the Bay Area are actually blessed. We have some incredible Black leaders, both in the activist space, when I think about Kat Brooks, when I think about Alicia Garza, Wanda Johnson, and in the elected official space, when I think about Malia Cohen, when I think about Barbara Lee and how important it is to get Barbara Lee in the U.S. Senate, when I think about Latifah Simon and how important it is to get Latifah Simon into the House of Representatives. So I actually feel full of hope in some ways. And I just want us to build a multiracial coalition. If we can't build a multiracial coalition for our collective liberation here in the Bay Area with everything we have, we can be the change agent who can show the rest of the country how it is done, right? As the Bay Area became majority people of color before California became majority people of color. And now by 2040, the United States will be majority people of color. So we here in the Bay Area, let's work together locally and build a multiracial coalition for democracy, for collective liberation, for peace and education and safety, and all of the things that we all want is the same thing, right? So let's stop letting the wealthy white people divide us so they can maintain power. And I'm very grateful to be part of this conversation today.
Racy conversations. Karen, I know we talked about it. We're going to have some black folks and some white folks. We're going to talk about race. So we're going to start working together to put that on. We'll get some cool white folks that want to come talk to some black folks. And we're going to have a real racy conversation here at both sides of the conversation. So I'm looking forward to that. And we got some white folk that we got to hold accountable. I like how white folks got to change it, because a lot of white folks out there don't think they got a part to do with it. They just want to walk around cool and just say that they assimilate and they want to support black folks, and they don't even do it. So we're going to have a great conversation. I'm looking forward to having it, Karen, and we'll be reaching out. We're going to have a powerful conversation. We talk about this black and white issue in America.
Thank you. Thank you. And Precious and WB and your name is eluding me. Khalees, it was such an honor to meet all three of you and to listen and learn from your wisdom. I really appreciate everything you shared.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And we'll be reaching out. We're going to get a racy conversation on both sides of the conversation coming up soon. Community, get ready. Y'all been want to ask these white folks questions? Yeah, me and Karen going to bring some white folks on there. We're going to make them ask those questions. So looking forward to that. But my co-host who do the most, Khalees, she got muted today, y'all. I'm in trouble. She like, I wanted to say something. I got to hear it now, community, because we was going there. See, these conversations get so passionate that we just be forgetting about my co-host. I'm sorry, co-host. Don't beat me up too bad today. But go ahead and leave something to the people, because I know you always give a good wrap up.
Don't be sorry, John. It's okay. It's okay. I really want to thank Dante. It's always a pleasure with him on our conversation. He has a lot of insight. He's well spoken. It's nice to hear him speak. Precious, same. Really appreciate interacting and talking with you. Thank you for coming to both sides of the conversation. It's nice to hear you speak as well. WB, yes, WB. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, bringing that 29 years. And you already know, I go to Vegas, I got to get my hair done by my god sister. Appreciate it. Clarence, I know he had to go early. Thank him for being on the show as well today, giving that inside, being incarcerated on the inside. And Karen, oh my goodness, I have never ever heard the things that you said today. We have to bring you back on an educational Thursday so you can educate all the white people. I'm telling you, because boy, you broke history in my life today saying the things that you said. Oh my, yes. So thank you all for being here. I have to let the community know. Community, please do not gamble your life off by intentionally placing your life in the hands of any police interaction. I'm going to leave you with that note. Do not gamble your life off placing your life into the hands of these police officers. I'm just saying. That's all I have, John.
All right. Now, it's all to me. We got to get out of here. The bishop. I have to leave a benediction to the people before I leave today. So I'm going to give a benediction. I'm running out of gas here because I've been in Vegas all night. See, I ain't supposed to say nothing about Vegas. See, they say what happened in Vegas, stay in Vegas. I'm already talking about Vegas. See, they pulled it out. Double beep, you pulled it out. I told them myself. All right. but with that being said, we got to give a benediction to get out of here. My team is yelling at me because we are way over. But this was very powerful. So with the benediction, I'm just going to say this. Community, what you heard today was something powerful, something intentional. We have to wake up and think. It starts with conversations. The conversations of the people, the vibration of the voices of the people is what causes change. We must intentionally learn the steps that we need to take to make change. We need to intentionally be a part of the process so that we can make change. We must intentionally get involved. We can no longer sit back and wait for people to make the decisions that need to be made. We must take our equity. When we talk about the prison industrial complex, the system that continuously to bring harm to the very community folks, this system as a whole, we must find ways to poke holes in it so that we can free the minds of the people, the opportunities for the very people. When we talk about going inside and coming back out, re-entering the community, there has to be a process in place. There has to be a way that we can leverage the opportunity so folks really get a true shot at equity coming home. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of information. While we are fighting community, we must work in solidarity. You heard from Dante King. You heard from some amazing voices, the historic damage, the trauma, the PTSD, the industrial complex, and how it impacted our community. We know these systems. We know what has taken place. We have to work together to fix it. If we don't do it, who's going to do it? All of the businesses out there, all of the people that said they want inclusion and diversity and equity, you heard from Karen. White people must step up and make the change. White industrial people must make the change, the investment in the very community folks that they have caused harm and destructed. Yes, you cannot just come in our space and assimilate and say, I want equity, without bringing a plan. So all of the industrial corporations, when folks are incarcerated by a system that was in place to make sure that the very Black folk, the very brown folks were placed in, when they come home, you must give a second chance. You cannot talk about inclusion. You cannot talk about equity if you're not willing to forgive. When they say, when you come home, there's a second chance. American corporations have to be the leaders of making that change and giving those opportunities. My white folks, you want to be a part of the change? You want to see the narrative change? You can't just assimilate and show up. The fight must continue. You cannot just show up and say, I was there for a moment. The fight continues in solidarity 365 days a year on all issues. We must see them together in solidarity. We will continue to do our work. But again, this is not about clout chasing. This is not about the moment. It's about making sure that those processes are completed. We got a lot of work to do, community. Our young people are hurting. These systems, we're going to have to fix them. We cannot put our young people in these prison systems to cause harm to our younger generation. We cannot continue to have the type of officers in uniform abusing and causing harm in our community. The policies need to be changed. We need community policing. We need folks from the community. So we're going to have to change the policies, the misdemeanors, the small infractions that keep people from the community from becoming officers to police the very community that they say they're patrolling. All of our correctional officers, it is your duty to make sure that you are leading in humility and compassion. Those very words that you speak to those inmates when they walk out the gates in their day-to-day interactions, those words could be the words that really change the life, or it can be the words that bring the hate, the pain, and the harm. We all have a role and responsibility. We must train. We must equip the community leaders. We must equip the very people who are doing this work the right way so that change really happens. There's a lot of things that is going on. It's going to take us all. We're going to need the mental health. We're going to need the wraparound services. Community organizations, it is our responsibility to make sure that the services get to the community folks in need. When we have people from the community coming home, we need to make sure that we have pathways and processes in place. I must leave with this. I agree with Precious. There's a dismantling that needs to happen, community. Join the forces of the people. Join Precious. Join the very people that want to dismantle the system that continues to oppress the people. All power is with the people. Community. Step with Precious. Step with the bishop. Both sides of the conversation. We are the movement. We are the BMV, the Black Media Voice of the people. We don't need the others. All we need is us. Together, we can make the change. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in today. I know it's been long. I know it's time to eat dinner, get ready for work. But this conversation should continue at the dinner table. We should be educating our young people when they come in contact with the police, how to behave, how to act, how to navigate. We must think about our relatives and family members who are coming home from these prison systems. How do we help them? How do we give them equity and opportunity? Not just, I don't want you in my house. I don't want you around me. How are we preparing to help them when they come home so that they can have a smooth transition back into this very community that we say are village-led? With that being said, community, thanks for tuning in today. Our next live show will be this Tuesday at 7 p.m., our Hidden Gem segment. We will continue to uplift the Black and brown businesses, the community leaders, and all of the folks that are doing positive things to impact our community. And this Thursday, we're going to have another Educational Thursday where we will continue to intentionally educate our community with information and resources that sometimes our people just don't get. And then next Sunday, we'll have another Sunday conversation. Thank you all for tuning in. Be safe out there. Tuesday, we got another storm coming in. Make sure you check on your loved ones. It's supposed to be a nice little storm, and we'll get through it. But again, thank you all for tuning in. Have a blessed evening, and we'll see you all this Tuesday. Have a blessed one, everybody.